All right, and we are back for another edition of Sunday Night Astro Live. It's me, Robert Phoenix. I'm your host, and I'm back here with the different cam setup. So I need to adjust accordingly. Let's see. How does that look? Not too bad. Not too bad. Let me get my green screen setting here. I want to make it a little more. Let's see, we got that. It's a little energetic. No, it's a little stacky. How about right? No, that's a little too much. How about this is a bad hairline right here. That's a really fucked up hairline right there. About right. Yes, outer limits right there. We'll settle for that one. That'll work. Okay. How is everyone? It is Sunday night, the 27th of August. Last Sunday night of August. And we are clearly in Virgo territory, and that's going to be a large part of the topic of the show tonight. Just check my mic here as well, just to make sure that you're getting good audio. No, you're going to get better audio now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what we want. We want the deep, rich, dulcet tones. Brought to you by the new lavalier mic. Video's a little blurry. I know. I'll tell you what the problem is here. Because I could do a little of this, right? I can hit it with this, right? We can do that. And it's just really blurry now. We can do that. But it's still going to be blurry. You know why? Because the internet here is not great. It's the signal. It's just the signal. So you're gonna have to get the outer limits version of me. Although if you wanted to, I could kind of flip that, and we could go into a different camera setting. Let's try the other camera setting, shall we? This would be the internal camera, and that's what the internal camera would look like. And it too, you see, is a little blurry. Right. But the thing with the internal camera is that you get a little bit less of the kind of the static imagery, but the image itself is not as clear. It's really, I'm just giving you the heads up here. Once I get out of the sticks, and don't get me wrong, I have really enjoyed my time in the sticks. We're back here now. I really enjoyed my time in the sticks. It's been really good. But once we get out of the sticks, the quality of the internet will be much better than it's been. And even tonight, as I was getting onto the show, it was incredibly just like real, like almost dial-up version. Felt like it was 1999, 2000 all over again. Like on the Earthlink dial-up. But I think we have a strong enough connection tonight to pull off a really good show. And of course, the power of Chattaria will increase the signal as we go deeper into the subject matter of the night. As you can see behind me, I have a vision or a version of the Black Madonna. And the Black Madonna is another version of Virgo. And I have been playing with this concept of the Black Madonna for a while now. And I'm gonna break the ice tonight on tonight's show. And it's been it's been kind of a theory concept thing that I've been living with for maybe like the past 6 or 7 months. And I thought tonight would be a good night to start a conversation about who and what I believe the Black Madonna is and why it is an appropriate symbol for our time. We're going to get into that tonight, and it'll be a fairly significant part of the show. And I think it will spring a lot of interesting conversation, both in the chat and also I just think in astrological circles and philosophical circles, and it's a good month to bring this up because we are in the time of Virgo, and this is yet another version of the Virgin, right? It's a different version, but one nonetheless. So we're gonna get into this tonight. We've got the power of the Black Madonna over my left shoulder. We have the power of the white and ginger cat at the door. We have the power of the ginger king on the chair. So we are surrounded in this trinity of cat power here tonight, which will help bring us through. So Jasper, once I took down his little homeless encampment, he's out here now. I just had to get him out of his comfort zone. Now he's a new comfort zone. So anyway, welcome to the show. If you're new, say hi to everybody in chat. It's a good group in there, very friendly and welcoming and big-hearted and smart and a bunch of wise asses, which is good. It's good. We like it that way. And we're going to be here tonight for probably about 2.5 hours, getting into Virgo season. We're, anytime we start a new sign, I go through a list of people who are part of the sign, and so we'll do that tonight. We'll look at famous Virgos, and we started this last week where we were looking at some of the qualities of Virgo, and I can only barely claim my scintilla of Virgoan real estate in the zodiac. I'm 29 degrees Virgo, so I'm at the very final degree, the anaretic degree. And I don't know if you guys have seen the show that I did with oh god, who was that? It was Danny Katz. And Danny Katz and I got into cusps. And one of the things that I shared was that I didn't believe there were cusps. You're either one sign or another sign. And you can share some qualities with the next sign. So, for instance, I won't make it all about me. I'll make it about you. Let's say, for instance, you're on the cusp of Aries and Taurus, right? Let's say you're the final degree of Aries and you have Mercury and Venus and Taurus, which would not be uncommon. So you're kind of thrust as an individual, unslightly intended with Aries, would be very Aries-like, right? But how you would relate to people and how you would communicate with people and what you would align your values with would be very Taurus-like. So you could show up barely as an Aries, but still an Aries, and have a little bleed over to the next sign. And that's why some people will say, well, I really feel like such and such. Well, you're not really such and such. We're gonna put that to bed. You're one sign or the other. But even if you're like 29 degrees and 59 minutes, you're still that sign. You're just at the final minute of that sign. And so you, at that degree, you have unfinished business, which is called the anaretic degree. And we've talked about that degree before. And there's some other things that go along with the anaretic degree, which I myself have experienced in my life. And one of the things that anaretic degrees are known for is going down a particular path and then changing their mind at the last second, which I've done on a number of occasions. And usually those things they've helped me. They weren't always a hindrance. They may have been a hindrance for somebody else, but deep down inside, there was something that at that moment to pull out or turn away from was actually a good thing. I'll give you an example. So I believe it was in 2007. I was married, child, and of course, when you're married and you have a child, the thing that is of utmost importance is security, right? Especially, if you're a mother, what do you want? You want a home. You want a home. You want the cradle for your relationship, for your life, for your kid. That's utmost importance. So we were renting at the time, and we were actively looking at houses. This was in Berkeley, California, and down in the flats, and not quite in the flats. What would it be by like? What was like? What was that market? Little Japanese market. Anyway, it was in a pretty cool part of Berkeley. I forget the street name. Was it Marin? It might have been Marin. Anyway, so we got into a negotiation for this place, and looking back on that place, it was actually kind of a nice place. Like if you wanted to live in Berkeley, this was kind of a cool place, kind of a decent place. But I remember, now this is 2008. It was, I think the price in that place was around, it wasn't cheap. I mean, I think it was around 650 grand. I think it was about a 3-2 with a pretty big backyard. And at that time, I don't think I wasn't working, and I remember my ex was working, and we're going down this path. I'm like, okay, yes, and all of a sudden, I just keep thinking about this. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to get this house. And we had lined everything up, right? I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. And part of it had to do with the fact that I didn't want to be wedded to a house payment and just go and like, oh, go get a job. Go get a job so we can, make this hefty house payment, because the mortgage was going to be pretty thick, even though interest rates were lower then. And this was kind of just, okay, keep in mind, this is 2006, late 2006 or early 2007, right around there. And I wound up, I think I was working for this this music aggregator. And I thought to myself, again, I'm just, spidey sensing this thing out. This job is not going to last forever. And then what do I do? Right? Because I knew it wasn't going to last forever, because the company was on such shaky ground. And then what do I do? Then I'm just going to have to go out and get any fucking job to make a house payment, right? And I'm like, no, I can't do that. Had we bought that house, there's a very good chance you and I would not be having this discussion tonight. Just saying. Maybe destiny is, written in the stars. I think there's some truth to that. But we also have to co-create with material that's on our plate. And during that time, it was that 29th degree kicked in. And then sure enough, the housing crisis hits. And everybody is just losing their shirts. Now, eventually, had we, kind of wrote it out, it probably would have been okay, because the value of property in Berkeley would have been through the roof. We probably could have sold that place maybe years after for close to $1 million based on the property values there. But from going to that place and the housing crisis and all the tension that it would have brought with it, it would have been, I think, extremely difficult and a burden on an already taxed marriage and relationship. So that was my 29th degree kicking in. And I think at the end of the day, it worked out. It served its purpose. And that's one of the aspects of the anaretic degree. No, it doesn't happen all the time. And as I've gotten older, right, and this is astrology. As you get older, you have a progressed chart, and so you go through things with your progressed chart. and you're learning like new lessons and new opportunities and new skill sets. So I went through a very long progressed Scorpio sun period, which only ended 2 years ago when my progressed sun went into Sagittarius. I think it's at Sagittarius 2 now. But during that 30-year cycle of going through my progressed Scorpio sun and having it like landing on my natal ascendant, you go through a lot of endings. I went through a lot of endings, and I went through a lot of fire during that time. And so when you go through that, then when I went through that, not everybody's going to go through that, but when I went through that, going into like 012 Sag was in some ways like a graduation. Like, okay, you went through these things, and you mean me, and I went through them, and I went through them all the way to the end, whatever they were, right? So it doesn't feel like the 29th degree is as prominent as it has been, because that is one of the things for 29-degree people. They will go down this one path, and then all of a sudden they'll just veer off and do something else for whatever reason. And the only thing I could rationalize at that time was the fact that I didn't feel comfortable with my gig, and sure enough, it went away. And sure enough, there was a housing crisis, and it would have been probably even more intense than it was during that stretch in our marriage. Let's see who we have here. You guys were lining up tonight. Let's see who we have. Let me go kind of back into chat. I always like to do some shout outs here to people because it's a cool thing to do, and it connects me with you guys. Let's see, who else do we have? Who do we have here? Tondar's here. What's up, Tondar? Love a Scorpio. Nevad 17. Esther Swift. What's happening, Esther? Susie Gemini. Our neater greeter. She's here. Catherine Rosen. Checking in from Florida. Boy, speaking of Florida, Ron DeSantis is having a hell of it. Ron DeSantis really fucked up when he decided to enlist the aid of Jeb Bush and George Bush and Karl Rove. What a stupid fucking career move that was. My God, if you believe in energy and vibration, the energy and the vibration has moved so far beyond the Bushes and the Roves of this world. They just look like fossils. Like that whole model. Ron DeSantis, and I'm not here to give Vivek any more gas than he already has, but Ron DeSantis looked like a statue, and not a good one during that debate, because he's burdened by this political strategy, political theory that these a-holes from the 20th century are trying to drag into the 21st century. It's like, hello, people are not going to listen to Karl Rove and George Bush and Jeb Bush's political talking points. The world has moved way beyond that. Way, way, way beyond that. And so Ron DeSantis, a Virgo, by the way, has made, I think, a huge critical error by losing his voice. First of all, if I was Ron DeSantis, I would never have run for president. Not now. I would not have run for president. And he was doing everything in his power to cash in on his political favors and his political cachet that he's accrued since he was barely a winner over Andrew Gillum in his first go round as governor of Florida. That said, if he was persistent about running, then he made a tactical error by contrasting himself against Donald Trump. That was a tactical error, right? Ron DeSantis should have come out clearly in support of Trump and supporting his legal battles. But because there's so much animosity And see, this is where, okay, we're going to get a little political here, but this is where when people say, well, it's all just one uniparty. Yes and no. There is bad blood in various parts of the uniparty sector. And the Bushes and the Trumps do not get along. They're not in favor of one another, right? This is now sort of turning into a bit of a blood feud here, and Hatfields and McCoys and Ron DeSantis picked the wrong side. And he got obliterated. He looked like he had his feet in play the entire time. And the younger, more nimble Vivek Ramaswamy, whom I do not get good vibes from, by the way, because he could be anybody. He's like the Gumby candidate. You know, you can just bend him, and he'll say whatever. The most outside. He's the most outsider we've seen so far. He basically said he was going to cut off aid to Israel. Like, what person has ever said that during a presidential debate? And he did that just to trigger Nikki Haley. I know that's what he did, because Nikki Haley is this man. She loves her some Star of David, right? She's really a hardcore Zionist. And then he kind of walked it back a little bit, but Ramaswamy is playing the Trump card during the debates. Now, I have my own personal feeling. I think he's a bit of a plant. You know, and I've heard so many times that the GOP is not into him. Well, why is he at the debate? They could make it real easy for him. Look what happened to Larry Elder. Larry Elder should have been at that debate. He would have been great. Larry Elder is probably the one person on the panel that could go toe to toe with Ramaswamy. He's a smart guy. You keep in mind he's also a Leo, so he is when the light is on him, he will step to the occasion, and he was literally center stage during that debate. Now, if you go back to 2008, we'll do a little. In the 2008 election, another Leo was running for president, and that was Ron Paul. And where did they put Ron Paul? They put him at the fucking, the county line when it came to the debate stage. Oh, is that Ron Paul down there? Oh, yeah, right. Well, if you looked at the two guys at the end of the debate stage the other night, you had Asa Hutchinson all the way at the other end of one side, and then the governor of North Dakota, who I don't even know his name. I mean, that's how obscure the guy is, and he's running for president. He was over there. So if you want to marginalize somebody, you don't put them center stage. You don't put them center stage. So this is just my gut feeling. I feel like Ramaswamy is a bit of a plant. And he's been very deferential to Donald Trump. So here's something. So I just bought this book, the 49 Laws of Power by Robert Greene and Eustace Elfers. And one of the laws of power is never outshine the master. Okay. Now, in this case, I would say that Trump and MAGA in that cosmology would be the master. So Ramaswamy is going to outshine everybody but the master. He's incredibly deferential to Donald Trump, right? Not just deferential, but extremely supportive in a way that nobody else up there has really demonstrated. So what is that going to do to MAGA people? MAGA go, oh, he really likes Donald Trump. Oh, he's really respectful to Donald Trump. Oh, I like this guy. He's a lot like Donald Trump. Gee, I wonder if he can be a vice president. I'll tell you right now, Vivek doesn't really want to be vice president. He'll take it if it's given to him. If I were Trump, I wouldn't make him vice president. I wouldn't do that. I mean, he might get the millennial vote, but I wouldn't make him vice president unless you want to keep your friends and enemies close. In that case, if he got the nomination, I would certainly consider it. If I was Trump, I'd probably ask Tucker Carlson to run with me. You know, a long time ago, I did a breakdown on Tucker's chart. And I think Tucker does have a bit of a presidential chart, even if he is a Taurus. And his chart really, if you match his chart up with Trump's, they actually work pretty well together. And I remember when, this is back when Tucker was on Fox, and he met with Trump in Japan. And I always thought that was really interesting. Like there was something about, it wasn't just Tucker going to Japan to have a Fox News bit. Like he was there, I think, to have some kind of a more personal meeting with Donald Trump. So anyway, I just think that Vivek, this is just my gut. This is my 2-4 splenic projector gut response. Vivek is a plant. Now, if you go back and you look at his politics, of course, he got a loan from Soros. He was pretty much pro-lockdown, pro-mask, pro-jab, right? He comes out of a big pharma background. So he has Vivek's got some skeletons in the closet, and they're kind of rattling around from not that long ago. And his Alzheimer's drug looks like another ginned up big pharma money grab, right? So when you look at him, you gotta look at him, just out of the corner of your eye a little bit, like what's really going on with this guy. And he used a line at the debate, and it was straight out of Obama when Obama was at, I think, one of the Democratic debates. I think it was in 2008. And he said, I bet you're asking yourself, how did this skinny guy with the funny last name get up here? That's what Obama said. And Vivek used the exact same line. Now, it's smart because he's tapping into like the echo of a memory, right? That's a postmodern technique. What he's doing is he's basically reconstructing this historical soundbite and then making it his own. But it still comes out of Obama. And they're both Leos too, right? They're both Leos. And it feels to me like I never thought that Trump was the Republican Obama. I never really thought that. But Vivek feels more like the Republican Obama because he's slick. Trump is not slick. Trump is kind of messy, and he kind of has this gruff way about him, which endears him to people. Vivek is slick. He's always smiling. He always knows that the camera is on him. He's totally slick. So in that regard, he has much more in common with Obama than Trump does. And again, he's a Leo too. So Leos tend to do very well in presidential elections, or people that have strong Leo connections. Again, I did a show on the presidential connections with Leo a long time ago. It's actually called the Leo Code. It's on this channel. And if you hunt around enough, you'll be able to see me go through all different presidential charts. And most of them have a very strong connection with Leo, either things like Jupiter or the ascendant or the midheaven or their sun, or the true node. Right. I mean, there's very strong Leo connections with a number of presidents. It seems to be either a prerequisite to being elected, or it's just a natural outgrowth and flow from the sign of Leo itself, being related to things like royalty, rulership, all the stuff, right? The blessing and the divine blessing and the divine kiss of Regulus when it was in Leo. And so I think that helps. And you've got Mr. Vivek, who is a Leo. It was funny. I was talking with, I wasn't talking. I was watching Alex Jones on Pat Bet David just for a bit. And they brought up Gavin Newsom. And I think people need to be very wary of Gavin Newsom. Do not count this guy out in terms of a candidate. And not only is he like the favorite son of Northern California, San Francisco, high society, Pacific Heights, corrupt politics. Gavin Newsom is a killer, right? He is a killer. He is like Patrick Bateman. And if you get him, we looked at his chart, and you get him in a debate situation, I'll tell you one thing about Newsom. He will not fluster. He will not fluster. He's got that Mars in Sagittarius. And maybe we bring his chart up again tonight just to kind of go over it one more time. Here, why wait? Let's do it right now. Let's check out his chart. So he was on, and I didn't see the entire interview, but he was on Hannity. And Hannity, first of all, most of these guys, they don't go on Hannity. They just don't. But he did. And of course, Hannity came after him. And Newsom went hand to hand with Hannity. Let's look at his chart. All right, just on as a personal note, Gavin Newsom is 6'3", and I think it's the Taft rule for presidents. And if you're 6 feet and above, the chances of you being elected president are much better than if you weren't. That's another problem with Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is maybe 5'10" in heels. He's not tall. Donald Trump is 6'2", so he fits the bill. I think Obama's around 6'2". Let's see, George Bush, 6 feet. Bill Clinton was around 6'2", 6'3". George Bush Sr., I think, was around 6'3". Reagan, I think, might have been around 6'3" or 6'4". Reagan was pretty tall. At least the first version of Reagan was. And then prior to that, you had Carter. I think Carter chimes in, maybe about 6 feet, 6'1". So there seems to be some truth. The only guy that wasn't tall was Nixon. I think Nixon was 5'11". He was just under. So you got Newsom. You're 6'3". So he fits the Taft rule. And let's check out his chart. He's a fire goat. Remember when goats used to be sheep? Isn't that like a Mandela effect? Okay, so here we go. Look, Jupiter and Leo. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Right? This Jupiter effect. Jupiter and Leo. Now, next year, guess where Jupiter is going to be in his chart? It's going to be on his midheaven. So Gavin Newsom is going into the 2024 election with Jupiter right up here. And that's pretty significant. Can't rule that out. If selected, he will also go through his Saturn return. And he has Saturn in the 7th house in Aries, and it's retrograde. This is a guy who has grudges. He doesn't forget things. Like if you fuck Gavin Newsom over, Saturn, Aries, retrograde, 7th house, duly noted, right? He is going to balance out that transaction. He will totally balance out the transaction. His true node, so we have a nodal return here. Oh, by the way, Gavin, the true node will be right around here, right around his Saturn. That's another, that is another hit, right? Like you want to have that true node, transiting true node around Saturn, because what it's doing is it's like lighting up the potential. Whatever you think of Gavin Newsom, I think he's a stone cold killer. But whatever you think of him, the transits for him in 2024 are, borderline presidential. Do not sleep on this dude. I would be very surprised if he's not the candidate. Now, you do have a faction inside the party that's going to want to run Joe Biden again. Let's face it. It worked one time. And if you pay attention to Biden and what's happening, he's taking more and more vacation time. So what they're doing is they're limiting his access to the press and all of the gaffes. And so what they'll do is I don't know what they were thinking. Like, we got to get him to Maui. He was a disaster. I mean, Lahaina is a disaster, and Joe Biden was a close second to Lahaina. That's how bad he was there. And he can't go anywhere without Jill because she's now clearly his unofficial handler. So they're going to have to bring him out in certain situations. They just can't put him in the basement all the time. But he's taking all these vacations now because there's a faction inside of the White House, or not the White House, inside of the Biden camp, that would be more than happy if they could run him out for another 4 years and then have the guy from Martha's Vineyard in the basement, playing the organ keys and, having, Biden jumping around like a marionette. They'd be happy with that. If they could get away with another 4 years of that, they would. Now, I don't think that Obama and Newsom are very tight, but there is a connector between the two of them, and that's Kamala Harris. And Harris and the Obamas are tight. And Harris, part of her success is due to the liberal, progressive, corporate crony mafia from San Francisco. That's where she came of age. And Gavin Newsom is a bloodline member of that family, right, of that mafia. So there's the intersection between the Obamas and Newsom. It's with Harris. Now, I've heard, and we're going to get into this tonight, right? This gets into Harris. This gets into Michelle Obama. And I've heard that the bridge in the Newsom presidency would be a Michelle Obama vice presidency. Think about that for a second. Now, technically, I don't know if Obama could be vice president, because if something happened to the president, that's really weird territory, right? I don't think that's ever happened. That if something happened to the president, then Obama, who would be vice president, could then step in. I don't even know if he can run for vice president, but that would be the bridge to broker the deal. Let's take a little bit. Let's look at Newsom's chart some more. Speaking of Virgo, he's a Virgo rising, 21 degrees, and he's got Pluto right on the ascendant. It's another reason why this guy's a killer. He's a stone cold killer with Pluto on the ascendant. Now, you could say, well, I've got Pluto on the ascendant. Does that make me a killer? Do you have it exact? Well, he's off by, 9 minutes, 21:14, 21:23. It's about a knife's edge right there between Pluto and his ascendant. That's intense. People that have Pluto on their ascendant, you don't really want to fuck with them. You really, especially if they have power. If they have power, they will unleash Pluto. And I'll tell you what else. People that have Pluto on the ascendant, they will not rest until they get what they want. What do you want? I mean, come on. What do you want? You have Pluto on the ascendant? Huh? Why don't you come over here and earn your keep? I need a familiar tonight. What about you over there? They won't rest until they get what they want. That's the nature of Pluto. It is obsessive. It is compulsive. And even when they get what they want, they're not always happy. They're happy for a minute. And then there's more. So what else gives him the killer instinct? It's Mars. Remember I talked about that Mars and Sag? It's square his ascendant and square Pluto. Again, it's not a guy you want to piss off. And he's a Libra and everything, and he kind of looks the part. He's well put together, slick back hair, Wilkes Bashford suits, but this is not a guy like if he says this is what we have to deal with here. This is a threat, I'm telling you. Because if he gets elected and he says we're going to have a constitutional convention and redo the Constitution, this guy will force it through. He'll force it through. And unlike other people who have been president, he'll get rid of people. He'll just shit can people, right? Because that's a Mars Pluto square. If somebody or something gets in his way, forget it. You're done. You're gone. Boom. Make no mistake about it. And he also has Mars trining Jupiter. There can be. So it's just an aside. So when I used to live in the Bay Area, I had a girlfriend, and we were together for about 3 years, 3.5 years, and I love her to death. She's great, and I hope she's doing well. And she got her start in the Marina District in San Francisco. And when Gavin Newsom was a supervisor in San Francisco, that was his district. And he was really good to her. Right? He was really supportive to her business, right? He used to come in and buy coffee, and if there was a hang up with something, he tried to help out. And I think maybe on a couple of occasions he might have been helpful. Might have been with a parking zone in front or something, typical shit like that. And her relationship, and remember now, this is Gavin Newsom, circa 1994, 95, 96, right around there. Like, he's just getting his political feet under him. And he was very charismatic and very helpful, and she really liked him, right? And I think at that stage and at that level, you could probably afford to be that. And you could, in that area that he was a super, that was such an easy fucking area. Like down by the marina, so easy. That's where it wasn't like the Mission, or it wasn't like the Tenderloin, right? He was making sure that a lot of people who had money and were mostly happy got what they needed. So it wasn't a hard gig, and you could afford to be sort of this breezy Libra, right? And that's who he was. So he has that Mars Jupiter Sag. Mars trine Sag, Mars and Sag trine Jupiter in Leo. So I think when we look at something like this, because Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius, and it's trining Mars in Sag, it's going to make it bigger, right? That energy is bigger. It's more expansive. And when he's feeling confident, I mean, look out. This guy could, I think and you and I may not see it. And all we see is, the Patrick Bateman effect. But I guarantee you, if he's around donors and he's around people inside his party, that this is a guy that would inspire significant confidence, like confidence enough for people to open up their checkbooks. We don't see that. And when he had that runoff for governor, he was pissed, man. Don't think that he won't remember that. He will remember that. He didn't want to have to go through that. But what happened? He crushed everybody, right? That's Pluto on the ascendant. It's like you're either going to be the windshield or the bug. And so far, Gavin Newsom's been the windshield. Even when he went through some of that bullshit up in Sonoma, Napa, and they spotted him at a dinner and nobody was wearing masks, like a fundraiser, didn't faze him at all. He did his little Libra mea culpa, and he's on to the next thing, right? This is a guy who does not have his wheels stuck in the mud. He does not have a ton of water in his chart. He's got Mercury and he's got Neptune in Scorpio. So Mercury in Scorpio is pretty intense. It's, get to the bottom of things. You know what Mercury's good at, Scorpio? Uncovering secrets. Gavin Newsom knows shit, right? He knows things. Either through his own team, what do they call it? Opponent research, or whatever they call it. There's a term for it. But he's got that. But he also has this innately. Like, I think with Pluto here on the ascendant, and again, I'm not here singing Gavin Newsom's praises because I like Gavin Newsom. This is astrology. Gavin Newsom could read you in a minute and probably know more about you in that minute than 80% of the people in your life. Because he has, right? He has Mercury in Scorpio, which is penetrating, and it's in sextile with Venus. And he's going with Venus and Virgo. Now, this is a very interesting application for Venus. And look, the guy's had a shit ton of affairs. That's totally Venus in the 12th house. In a weird way, he looks like Patrick Bateman, but I'll tell you who he reminds me of, too. He reminds me of Don Draper from Mad Men. That's who Gavin Newsom reminds me of. Down to all the weird, gritty affairs. And Newsom is adopted, right? He's adopted. And so is Don Draper. Maybe we'll get into a Gavin Newsom, Don Draper comparison someday. But so with Venus and Virgo, I think Gavin Newsom, with this Mercury sextile to Venus, he is good at sizing up your vulnerabilities, right? Getting beneath the surface of things and understanding the nature of who's important and what those relationships look like, right? That's Venus and Virgo in the 12th house. It's critical. Venus isn't in its best place here, but it doesn't have to be, because it's in the 12th house, and Gavin Newsom can keep Venus occulted and away from the rest of the world. But he's very good, I'll tell you right now, he's very good at reading people. And Pluto on the ascendant is also part of that process, right? It's being able to assemble all this variable psychic information in the environment and then sort of call it and put it. But he's also very good at getting people to do what he wants. And through Virgo, it's not like Pluto and Leo, which would be bombastic. That's how Pluto and Leo would work. No, this is Pluto and Virgo. So he's able to get what he wants, but I think he's somebody who, when he gets what he wants, he's convincing people that by giving him what he wants, it's in their best interest. Because when we get into Virgo, it's about service and sacrifice. So somewhere in this mix, Newsom's figured something out, I think, that he's able to attain his goals while giving other people a sense that they're getting something. Maybe even that goes back to my girlfriend who had her cafe down in the marina. That's how she felt. I was doing something for her. And maybe, I don't know, maybe she donated to his next campaign or whatever. I don't know. Right. But that's how he kind of rolled. So he gets what he wants. But I feel like, again, people are giving that to him. That's Pluto and Virgo, because they feel like there's something in it for them. Like, oh, well, he'll take care of me, right? Or he'll fix this. So yes, I'm in. And that's what he does. He will project an aura. Now remember, Virgo, you can see this with Newsom. People have Virgo rising they do not leave their house without everything being buttoned up. There's no hair on the head that is out of place, right? That is the nature of Virgo rising. They walk out that door and they are making a statement. This is as close to perfection as I can present to the world on this day. That's Virgo rising. And clearly, Newsom has this. When you look at him, again, it's the sober version of Don Draper, the fucked up version of Don Draper. The hair is always down. You know, when the hair is down with Don Draper, he's in trouble. He's in trouble. He's either banging somebody, or he's got a shit ton of remorse, or he's drunk. But when Don Draper's got every hair in place, right, you know he's on. Well, that's Newsom. You will never see him. You will never see him not look like that. Because that's Virgo rising. And then you throw Pluto on there, on the ascendant. It was really funny. I remember he had to go out and actually campaign a little bit during this recall. And you could tell he was seething. He was seething. They had him somewhere underneath the freeway, some homeless encampment. And he's like, I don't have fucking time for this. I don't have fucking time for this recall. And you can just tell he was annoyed. You could just feel that Pluto on the ascendant. Like, if I don't get out of here in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to kill one of these homeless people. Right? That was the vibe. And so when you kind of go a few layers deep with that Virgoan perfection, and that Pluto starts to come through, like, ooh, this dude has a temper. He has a significant temper, and I wouldn't cross him. I would not cross Gavin Newsom. So if he goes out onto the campaign trail, he's already declared he's running for president. He's been going all through the South. Earlier in the year, he was in Florida campaigning against Ron DeSantis. He was telling Floridians to come move to California. He was telling Californians to come move back. And he just started to go all through the South. He was just doing his little politicking trip. He also has Uranus. So he's one of the Uranus-Pluto people born during the 60s. Right there, 26, 21. I think in 68, they were exactly conjunct, if I'm not mistaken. Or 67. It was 67 they were exactly conjunct. Summer of Love, big conjunction. So, where's he? Is he 67? Yeah, he's 67. Born in the summer of love. Yeah, there you go. But earlier in the year, earlier in the summer, like around June, July, Uranus and Pluto were much closer together at that time. But he has it. He has it in the first house. And Uranus in the first house is disruptive. It's totally disruptive. And what does it do? It's squaring Mars. So he's got a Mars-Uranus square. Again, that's explosive. That's totally explosive. This is the guy who does not mind throwing like a Trump tactic, like throwing a grenade in the middle of the room. But with Newsom, what he would do is he would get somebody in the room to throw the grenade for him. And somehow he would be connected to it in a way, but not directly. Like that's how Newsom rolls. This is a guy who gets people to do things for him. That's how he's become so, in a lot of ways, so successful, right? He also has this moon in Capricorn, totally detached. That's this moon that's officious and austere. And in this case, it's also trining his ascendant and trining Pluto in his chart. So again, if he's got aspiration to get to the top of his chart, what's going to happen? His emotional body will lock into his ascendant, and people will feel something, right? They will feel that this guy is no bullshit. This is not a sentimental person at all. Remember, there's a lack of water here, and the water that he does have functions with Mercury to accrue power. Taurus and the second house is power. It's power, earth power, earthly power. And his Neptune sextiles his ascendant. So again, with that Neptune sextile, if you didn't know anything about Gavin Newsom, he can be very charming. The Neptune sextile to the ascendant can be kind of mesmerizing, especially in Scorpio. And you throw in sort of those Libran, good looks and charm. I'm telling you, man, do not sleep on Gavin Newsom, not for anything that is positive with the attributes of his chart, but because of what he has in his chart that suggests to me that this is a very, in a worldly way, and even in supernatural context, this is a powerful person. And again, we don't know what really goes on behind the scenes in California politics. We don't know what goes on in that eighth house, right? Where all the donors and all the money sort of migrate down here into his second house. We don't know what goes on and the relationships he has with people hidden, right, occulted in that 12th house. So what we see is we see this guy who is hell bent on destroying California and is charming at times and is, there's a lot of fuck you in there as well with him, right? So do not sleep on Gavin Newsom. And if he got into, he would not, if they didn't take Joe Biden out, if they don't just manage him out and somehow Biden is in the mix during this debate cycle and chooses not to debate because Trump's not debating, whatever, right? It's a senior pass day. But if he's still around, Newsom will shred him. He will shred him. And it won't matter what kind of allegiance is there, 1, 2, 3 degrees of separation to shred him. He will shred anybody in their path. Now, what's interesting is that he and RFK Jr. astrologically square one another, right? So RFK Jr. is a Capricorn, Newsom's a Libra, so they have a 90-degree angle, friction and tension between them. And Newsom would not be opposed with opposition research is what it's called. Newsom would not be opposed to pulling out the big guns or opposition research with RFK. Now, RFK, the challenge with RFK is that he has gone through so many personal fires in his chart. Like Newsom really hasn't. Yeah, Kimberly Guilfoyle left him. So what? He's got somebody else, right? Newsom's biggest issues have been some affairs. Well, those are Kennedy's issues too. Kennedy's had a number of affairs. Kennedy also has the Kennedy family baggage. Newsom really doesn't have that. And the Kennedy family baggage can be helpful in the sense that there is something slightly mystical about the Kennedys, whether you like them or not, whether you think they're, the great American opportunists, and they are. I mean, the Kennedys are an embodiment of the American dream, and that old man Joe Kennedy aligned himself with the right power players in order to create a dynasty and build a dynasty. It's exactly what he did. He hung with the big boys. He sold their booze in Boston during Prohibition, and he made a shit ton of money. He knew people in the movie industry. So he rubbed elbows with Jewish power very early on because it was the Jewish directors and the theater people of New York who could not get their hands on Thomas Edison's technology. And so they went outside of the area code and the zip code. They went to California. And they just, they were out of the long arm reach of Edison. Because Edison, I think he had dibs on most of the movie equipment and movie cameras, and he might have even had some patents going on, right? But in California, it was really the Wild West. So you had people like Louis B. Mayer and all these people who left New York said, "Fuck you, we're going to start our movie business out here. We don't have to do this. This is going to be new territory." And this is exactly what they did. And Kennedy knew all those guys, and he actually opened movie theaters. So old man Kennedy had all these connections. And when the stock market crashed, he had already moved all of his money out of the stock market because he knew all the fucking robber barons. He knew all those dudes. He was in. They all had their hands in crime, right? So Kennedy was one of their crime boys. He was one of their gang members. So when it came time to get the tap on the shoulder, say, "You better get that shit out of there," and you should probably get it out in about 2 or 3 months, because 5 months after that, the whole thing is burning down. That's exactly what he did. He got all his stocks out, and then the market crashed. And what do? They pull a Rothschild. And they start buying all these blue chip stocks, pennies on the dollar, and they just sit on them because they're not in any financial peril. Anyway, we're getting off track a little bit. But that's how the Kennedys made their fortune. And when the market went back up, all those stocks, pennies on the dollar, they rose too. So the Kennedys are connected to America. They're part of the American story in a way that Gavin Newsom isn't. Gavin Newsom is like a bastardized, I use that term, bastardized version of the American story, but he's more modern. And for a guy that came in on the summer of love, actually the fall of love, it's not real lovey, is he? It's not real warm and fuzzy. This is a guy that I think it'd be interesting to see how RFK Jr.'s Mars and Scorpio would play off of Newsom's Mars and Sagittarius. These two very, very different Marses. But they're kind of similar in some ways. They're kind of similar, and then not that Newsom has any aspirations, I think, to be vice president, but could there be a weird ticket with a Kennedy Newsom? I mean, they're so different. And I think Kennedy has had these epiphanies. Like, he talks about Carl Jung, he talks about archetypes. Like, I think if you sat down with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., you'd have a very decent conversation. You could have a real conversation with him. Unlike some of these other people, and I've brought this up before, could you imagine Mike Pence sitting down and having a conversation with Mike Pence? Mike Pence would sit there for about a minute and he'd leave, because you wouldn't be able to talk to anything about Mike Pence that you'd have remotely in common with Mike Pence. Nothing. He'd be there for a minute. You could have a conversation with RFK. Newsom, you could have a conversation with Newsom. Newsom would find out things very quickly, and he would hone in. And I think if you sat down with Gavin Newsom with this chart, he would make you feel, if you sat down with him, that you were the most important person in the world in that moment. He has that kind of chart. He has that chart. So for that 10, 15 minute, 20 minute stretch, who knows where the conversation would go? You might just talk about the weather, or you might talk about maybe the Giants or whatever, or maybe something remotely political. But for that period of time, and let's say you weren't in there to grill Gavin Newsom, because if you're going to get there and grill Gavin Newsom, he would get out the Ginsu steak knives, or he would leave, right? But if it was not in that, like, we just were going to have a conversation for that 15-minute space, you'd be the most important person in Gavin Newsom's universe. Now, would he remember you later on? I don't know. The lack of water in his chart is a little alarming, but some of it can be slightly ameliorated to some extent. He has Neptune in the second house, which is interesting. People, let's talk about Neptune in the second house. People always say that, well, gee, if you have Neptune in the second house, you're going to lose all your money. Well, Gavin Newsom is about to turn 58 in 2 years. I haven't seen it. Now, you could say, well, just wait until Saturn opposes his Neptune, and maybe that might happen. Or perhaps the next pass of Uranus opposing his Neptune might bring about his financial undoing. But I don't think so. And again, Neptune is always predicated by the sign that it's in. Neptune in the second house, if a person has what I would call spiritual values, right? If they have spiritual values, Neptune here works. It works. Right? Like this is material values, but if your material values and your spiritual values are congruent, it works. So if you were to take my course, which you can purchase right here, there's a link to it on my channel page. One of the things I talk about is how to deal with Neptune, either transit-wise or natally in the second house, because a lot of astrologers will tell you bad placement. I'm here to tell you that if you understand it, it can be a tremendous placement, but you have to understand it. So how do you deal with Neptune here in the second house? Well, when you think of Neptune as being tidal, so if you have resources in your life, let's say you have it natally, right? If you have resources in your life, thank them and bless them. Have gratitude. And then when the tide goes out and you don't have the resources, thank what you have and bless what you have. So there's no difference to when the tide is in or when the tide is out. When the tide is in, the tide is out. You're still grateful. And you don't get hung up on what you don't have, right? Or you're not drowning in the excess of what you have. And if you develop that conscious sense of your materiality as being tidal, and you develop a sense of gratitude, Neptune can be tremendous in the second house, really tremendous. You cultivate that, and people will say, "Oh my God, you're so great! You're a wonderful human being. Here, let me give you this, right?" And they're like, "Wow, well, thank you." This is patronage. Like Neptune in the second house is patronage. Sometimes, it can be eighth house. Eighth house can be very patronage oriented. But no, this is when somebody who unconditionally gives, right, to your financial well-being. That's also another very potent manifestation of Neptune in the second house. So he's got it, right? And as long as he just kind of rolls with it, and he's got this sextile with Jupiter. Like that's a square, my bad. That's a square. What does he have the sextile with in the ascendant? He's got the square with Jupiter. I think for him that he's a gambler and he's a risk taker. And sometimes with the Jupiter-Neptune square, people can appear inauthentic with the Jupiter-Neptune square, even when they're trying to gas people up. Anyway, I wouldn't let this guy get anywhere near the White House. I wouldn't. Yeah, it would be interesting also for him and somebody like Vivek to square off. Gavin Newsom's Patrick Bateman. He's a killer. All right. Well, that was an interesting little foray, little off-road journey there. I tell you what, why don't we do this? I remind myself not to say too much. Let's go into famous Virgos. Let's take a look at some of our famous Virgos. We like to do this. Peachy, aren't you Virgo? Yeah. Peachy's a famous Virgo. Yes, you are. If you get up here, you'll be even more famous. I swear to God, she said hi to me last night. I walked into this room, my office. She was sitting on my chair, and I have a pad on my chair. And I said, "Hi, Peachy." She said, "Hi." I swear to God, she did. It wasn't more than one little meow. It was just, "Hi." But it sounded like a meow. All right, let's do this. Let's check out some of these Virgos. Now, this is really weird. Marian Nichols, she's the most famous Virgo ever. Really? Excuse me. Michael Jackson. Now there's a famous Virgo. I had a dream about Michael Jackson a long time ago. I was when I lived in San Francisco, the place I lived in was just a fucking portal, man. The dreams I had there were incredible in this place. And I had a Michael Jackson dream one night. And he was clearly not from this world. Clearly not. And I'm not sure if this is really Michael Jackson. I'm just putting that out there. But he's a Virgo, and he always had the very Virgoan vibe, right? It looked like he was uncorruptible until he was bad. Let's see who else we have here. You'll find a lot of people under the sign of Virgo as being the power behind the throne, right? These are people in finance, banking, law. Here's Sullivan. He's look at that haircut. He's an architect. Form follows function. Walter Gropius would take that from the Bauhaus school. That would be his saying. Let's see who else. Barbara Bach, the lovely. Some of the most beautiful women are Virgos. We got Henry Hudson, the explorer, the man who theoretically found Hudson Bay, right? It is presumed he died in 1611 after being set adrift by mutineers on his ship Discovery and never seen again. Hudson made 2 attempts to find prospective Northwest Passage at China via route above the Arctic Circle while deployed the Dutch East India Company. So what they mean by Dutch East India Company is that he would create charters. And this is how globalization theoretically started, by creating charters. On September 11th, if I am not mistaken, he discovered Manhattan. That's right, 9/11. Let's see, we have Ferdinand Marcos, a vicious Virgo, if there ever was. He was okay, I guess. Let's see, Elizabeth I, of course, Virgo. You got a couple of Louis. You've got 14 and 16, both Virgos. Again, a lot of these people are kind of nondescript. Donald Bradman, Carl David Anderson. We're going to run into some better ones. There's Kobe Bean Bryant, of course, born at 0 Virgo, doing everything in his power to look, act, and talk like Michael Jordan. Arnold Palmer, who created one of the best non-alcoholic drinks of all time, a virgin cocktail known as the Arnold Palmer, with lemonade and iced tea, right? Have you heard the rumor that Mother Teresa was Fauci's mother? I find that hard to believe. There's also a rumor that Mother Teresa is a dude. That I don't have such a hard time believing. Cal Ripken, who set the record for most games consecutively played. Now that is a Virgo. He beat Joe DiMaggio's, Lou Gehrig's consecutive streak for games played, even though I told the story before, even though it didn't happen, almost didn't happen. If you're new to the show, I'll tell you again. So when I lived in California, there was a guy who was a sports writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, one of my favorite. Bruce Jenkins, great sports writer. And my friend Richard introduced me to Bruce one day, and we were talking, and he was the first person that brought up the story about Cal Ripken. And he was deep into his streak, the consecutive game streak. And the Orioles had an off day. And there was this benefit at a golf course. It was a golf tournament. And Ripken was there, and some other people were there, and Kevin Costner was there. Remember, Kevin Costner did a baseball movie, Field of Dreams. He did a golf movie, Tin Cup. Kevin Costner, this is how the story goes, left the golf tournament early and went home and shagged Cal Ripken's wife. And Cal Ripken came back and saw his wife in bed with Kevin Costner. And they got into a fight, and Cal Ripken clocked Kevin Costner, and he messed up his hand. And by the way, that would be total Kevin Costner behavior. He messed up his hand, and the Orioles were supposed to play the next day, and I think it might have been his throwing hand, like he couldn't throw. And it was going to jeopardize his streak. So they had a weird power outage in the stadium that day in Camden Yards. So they had to reschedule the game. And it gave Ripken an extra day to kind of get his shit together. So he plays the following day. They put him in. They only play him for like 2 innings because of his hand. And then I think they had a travel day after that or something like that. I think they had a travel day after that. It was, I think it was maybe a 3-game series or 2-game. Anyway, so he didn't have to play the game after that. And then the next game he was going to play was on the road. And by that time, he could get some, I think, motion in his hand and get it around the bottom of the bat. But so he almost did not complete this very Virgoan streak of the most consecutive games played. Thanks to Kevin Costner. We got Jesse Owens, a Virgo. Now here, let me just bring up a little history here with Jesse. Why is Jesse Owens not like number 1? Anyway, Jesse Owens was a very early political pawn. If you kind of look around at the current political climate, I think one of the things that has been the most obvious piece to discern and the most egregious act that has been perpetrated since the war on poverty in 1963 is the exploitation of so-called Black people for political gain. And we've seen this. We've seen this, and we've really seen the snowball start to go down the hill and pick up a lot more momentum. The good news is that is going to come to an end. That's going to come to an end. It's already happening. But it's nothing new. Jesse Owens was the same. Like Jesse Owens was politically exploited. And his political exploitation was based on the fact that when he was at the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, that he had an acrimonious and contentious relationship with Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. There was a javelin thrower who was German that Jesse Owens would develop a lifelong friendship with. And during his time at the Olympics, Adolf Hitler was very respectful to Jesse Owens. Now, there was a situation where he could not stand after Jesse Owens won an event, but that was a blanket decision. And that came down from the people running the Olympics. It was kind of like, you can't always show favoritism for everybody, because there are sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. And that was the case, right, with Hitler. So they said, instead of showing everybody favoritism, just stay in the box. So that was the memory that people had. as Jesse Owens did his victory lap. But Jesse Owens, after the Olympics, had nothing but good words to say about his relationship with the German people. He felt respected and welcomed by Hitler. Now, here's the other side of this. When he came back to the States, Franklin Roosevelt, who was president, would not meet with him. He did not want to meet with Jesse Owens. And this went on for a while. Finally, he met with Owens, and I think Owens brought his mother, and it was at a hotel in New York. It wasn't even at the White House. It was at a hotel in New York, and Jesse Owens had to take the service elevator to go meet Roosevelt. And so the political spin was that Jesse Owens was engaged in a conflict against racism and Aryanism and anti-Semitism. He was exploited. He was politically exploited. Wasn't the case at all. Really wasn't the case at all. His relationships were quite good with these people. So interesting backstory here. Peter the Cruel. Now, I would say you get a Virgo and they're cruel, they could be like, look out. Like Peter the Cruel could be, I'm imagining, pretty fucking cruel. Because he had those perfectionist tendencies. He would perfect his cruelty. Not a good thing. Not a good thing to engage with a cruel Virgo. Could you imagine all the fucked up torture devices that a cruel Virgo could cook up? It wouldn't be good. Let's see, Roger Maris. Roger Maris, typical Virgo. He didn't get any respect. He did not get any respect. He was the guy that had one more home run than Babe Ruth, right? One more home run. He set the home run record. And guess what? There was an asterisk next to it because he did it in more games. There were more games in the season that Roger Maris played. That's such a Virgo, deal, right? Like, oh yeah, you've set the record, but there's an asterisk. So that other guy, he's the one. He's the one that still has it. I think he got a bit of a raw deal, but Roger Maris, as a Virgo, he handled it incredibly well. Now, this is really interesting. Richard the Lionheart. Now, we're going to talk about the Crusades tonight. Richard the Lionheart, arguably one of the baddest badasses that ever lived. Like, this guy took no prisoners, really. For a Virgo, let's just put it this way. When he decided that he was going to raise a village, he did it with Virgoan precision. He was all in. So one of the things, as he went on his crusade, he stopped at his cousin's village. I believe, where was it? Was it in Germany? Like the southern part of Germany, Bavaria, and they're getting ready to, cut south and cross the Mediterranean and head into, Jerusalem, right? That's their path. And I think his cousin was German, and they stay in his village. And just because he's his cousin, it doesn't mean anything. It's like he tells his man, just go rape, pillage, and plunder. I don't care if he's my cousin. Just, do what you do. Just go do what you do. And that's exactly what they did. He didn't give a shit. He's like, yeah, you're my cousin. So what? Right? So what? And he would do stuff like it was a ship, and they would encounter ships as they would cross the Mediterranean. Now, sometimes these people could be friends, could be foes. They didn't know, right? They did not know. So what they would do is they would see a ship, and they would have like a small fire on their ship, right? But it was a fire that they would contain, but they would see smoke, or this other ship would see smoke. And so the other ship would kind of move up close to Richard the Lionheart's ship so that they could help. And what Richard the Lionheart would do is he would deploy these divers with these corkscrews, and they would go underneath the water, and they'd figured out how to corkscrew through the bottom of these ships very quickly. He would do that, and the people that he would do it to, he wouldn't know if they were there theoretically to help him. Like we're going to help you, so you got a fire over. Like he was a certifiable badass, and it may sound like psychopathic behavior or sociopathic behavior. Clearly, he's in the running, but that's what you did in that world. And so, what was really interesting about him is that when he went to Jerusalem, he and Saladin, who is the leader of the Muslims, became buddies. They became friends. They would play chess with each other. It was the one guy that Saladin actually respected, and that Richard the Lionheart respected as well. So it's an interesting profile for Virgo, isn't it? And he didn't live very long. Like he got into like a minor duel or something, and he suffered a cut that became gangrenous. He died early. Buddy Holly, Virgo. Love Buddy Holly. Did you know that Buddy Holly, his plane crashed just outside of Mason, Iowa? I always thought that was weird. And Buddy Holly was taken in the music industry. Rights, song rights. Now, I'm sure it's just the weather. But very unusual that a guy who was starting to get involved with publishing dies, right? Publishing. Now, here we go, Beyonce. Beyonce, when we get into the Dark Madonna, I'm going to bring her up. So Beyonce is a Virgo, and she's a queen, right? Like, that's the whole thing with Beyonce. By the way, I think she's dumb as rocks. But she's a queen. She's a Virgo. And we won't get into Beyonce, but we're going to get into the Black Madonna. Ted Williams is a Virgo, of course. He actually broke down hitting a baseball into a science. He was probably the most perfect hitter that's ever played the game. He was a shitty manager, terrible manager, but he was probably the best natural hitter to ever play the game of baseball. He figured it out. He used those Virgoan tendencies to perfect his swing. Right next to him, you have one of the shittiest presidents of all time, Lyndon Johnson. Weird chart. We looked at his chart, I think, about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Like, he has that conglomeration of everything in the first house. Sun in the first house, Jupiter in the first house. I mean, this guy was just all freaking first house Virgo, double Virgo. And he's a presence. He's a presence. He was one of the most powerful people in the country, which is why JFK tapped him as his vice president. If there was going to be a deal to get done in Washington, you went through Lyndon Johnson. And again, being a double Virgo, he figured out in a lot of ways how to make himself indispensable to people. He was the ultimate power behind the throne guy. And when he got to the throne, he liked it, but then it wore on him very quickly. Jesse James, Virgo, the beautiful Faith Hill. Look at that. We've got Peter the Cruel and Ivan the Terrible. The late, great Paul Walker, Virgo. You'll see a lot of beautiful women as Virgos. Caligula. Caligula looks like a chick. Knowing what we know now, wouldn't be surprised if Caligula was a chick. Rocky Marciano, undefeated. That's Virgo in perfection, never lost. Ted Williams, the last man to hit 400. Cal Ripken, more consecutive games than Lou Gehrig. Seeing a trend here? There's Taft, president. Avicii, wow. Passed away, didn't he? This is the guy that was going after. Look at that. Avicii and Paul Walker. Weren't they kind of in the Vesica Pisces there? Weren't they doing something similar? I think they were. Very interesting. I wonder what let's see his birthday. We're on a mission of discovery here. September 8th, 89. And Paul Walker, September 12th, 73. Interesting. And the rumor has it that they might have been connected to the same thing, uncovering the same thing. Colonel Sanders, Mr. Finger Licking Good, got a late start in life, but made up for lost time, didn't he? A master mason, by the way. Connections do help. Charlie Sheen, Virgo. Sometimes with Virgo, we also have to do with any sign. We have to deal with the opposite sign. So Virgo is dealing with the oceanic forces of Pisces. Holding back the waters in the deluge of feelings. Right. That's what Virgos have to deal with. And so sometimes their lives get messy. Sometimes the perfection is really like the damn wall, and that's a front for everything. Ed Gein, oh God. So we're going to run into some killers here. This is the guy who started the home lampshade business. Amy Winehouse, very troubled Virgo. Just always been weird vibes between her and Lady Gaga. I've seen, the morphine video between Gaga and Winehouse. And, when Winehouse disappears, Gaga shows up. And again, when you talk about Pisces being the back end, well, you got Winehouse and everything that it portends that it could store. Speaking of another Virgo who met an untimely end, River Phoenix, he and Kobe Bryant, both born at 0 degrees Virgo. And lost his life outside the Viper Room. His very last movie is a very strange movie. I think the guy that did it was Georges Sluzier or something like that. It is just really weird. Very odd. It's super occult. It's just strange movie. Anyway, who else do we have? Some of the Virgo queens. Shania Twain. Sophia Loren, the young Sophia Loren. Mamma mia. Anne Bancroft, not an unattractive woman. Mel Brooks did okay. Really, if you think about it. He definitely married up. Commodus. You can't talk about Virgo without Commodus. The man who had a passion for gladiatorial games, which he took so far as to take to the arena himself, dressed as a gladiator. Play dress up. The emperors used to fight each other. They were actually in the mix. Who else do we have? Andrea Bocelli, my favorite, Otis Redding. Right? Andrea Bocelli's born on September 22nd. Another guy born on my birthday, Michael Faraday. Mr. Faraday Cage. Mr. Hey, let's figure out what's going on with Tartaria and see if we can repackage it. Otis Redding. Just like Buddy Holly dies in a plane crash. Otis Redding died like a mile before the plane fucking landed. Can you believe that? He died in a lake, I think, in Wisconsin, just a mile away from shore. And then he sings a song about Dock of the Bay. It's this big posthumous hit. And it's like, you think about it, it's like, man, this song is so prescient. Freddie Mercury, Virgo. And we got Beyonce, who's a queen. Then we get Freddie Mercury's a queen. Right there. Let's see, who else do we have? Another murderer, Roy DeMeo. Is this the guy from the Amityville Horror? Is that him or is it Butch DeFeo? It's the Gambino family. Different guy. Who else do we have? Mr. Lukashenko. I knew I liked this guy. The president of Belarus. 68 years old. 1954. Year of the horse. You got to admit, man, this guy had nads during COVID. He had nads. He's like, no, we're not locking down. We're not carjacking. We're not doing any of it. I remember watching every, soccer matches. I actually reached out to the somebody in the communications of the Belarusian government. I wanted to interview the dude. But that guy was my hero during COVID. They had all these, very, very fancy, formal dressed balls that they were doing all that. It's like, man, that is so civilized. And then they tried to run a color revolution on them. And of course, guess who steps in? Putin put an end to that. They tried to regime change this dude. And the only reason he's there is because of Putin, really. The great philosopher John Locke, the positivist, if you like that sort of thing. Who else do we have? Roger Waters. He's a Virgo. Of course he's a Virgo. Of course. Even though with Waters, he sounds like he's a Pisces. But that's the back end. B.B. King, a Virgo. Now, there are, I think, at least 3 versions of B.B. King. But we won't get into that. Barry Gibb, Virgo. Barry doesn't look too bad for his age. I think is he the last one? Is he the last Gibb standing? He might be. The beautiful, speaking of not standing, Raquel Welch, another absolute goddess in Virgo. A lot of people think she was a dude. I don't know. Yeah, she played Myra Breckenridge, but in my head, in my heart, in my loins, Raquel, you're a woman. You're a Virgo. Yasser Arafat, supposedly, Yasser Arafat is a descendant of Muhammad. That he is in the bloodline of Muhammad, which is how he rose to power as being the lead terrorist of the 1970s. Although a lot of that terror stuff was manufactured. I think this is one guy who was in a couple of different payrolls. Gloria Estefan, another beautiful Virgo. Barbara Eden. Lance Armstrong. I was thinking about Lance Armstrong today, actually. I was just thinking about how they went after his ass. They went after him. They totally went after him. And what happened with Lance is that he pissed off a lot of people along the way. So there were people that wanted to take him down. Who are then? The Obama administration went after him. They needed to take down somebody. That was the time they were going after Lance Armstrong. They were going after baseball players. They didn't go after football players with steroids. They were like, let's get into the institutions. Let's start taking a sledgehammer to the institutions and the heroes. That's what they were doing. They were busting out the big guns for cultural Marxism because they had to show how corrupt these people were, how corrupt the sport was, or how corrupt the system that allowed these people to flourish, like Lance Armstrong was. And then what happens? People become demoralized. Oh shit. Oh, fuck. It's all demoralization. He was part of it, but he didn't help himself. Did not help himself. Hank Williams, Virgo. Carlo Gambino, Virgo. Tolstoy, hell of a writer, Virgo. The lovely Ingrid Bergman, another one of the Virgo beauties, Virgo. Patsy Cline, Virgo. Peter Sellers. How many personalities does Peter Sellers have? Virgo. Mary Shelley. Oh, Mary Shelley, the love, the unrequited passion of William Blake, and the author of Frankenstein, the sister of Percy Bysshe Shelley, another famous man of letters, the great romantic. Who else do we have? Brian Epstein takes a Virgo mastermind to manage the Beatles. Arnold Schoenberg, Virgo. I didn't like his music. Not a big fan of atonality. He's one of the fathers of atonality. Not a fan. I understand how it fits in the grand scheme of things. The splitting of the musical note, the splitting of the atom, the splitting of ideologies. It's all going on, right? Split, 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 split. Break it down, fractionalize it. But I'm not a fan. Julius III, Virgo. Wilfred Benitez, who was a very good boxer, but he didn't have the same kind of killer instinct that other boxers in his weight class had. Good boxer, no Tommy Hearns. Good boxer, no Ray Leonard. Good boxer, no Roberto Duran. That was his weight class. Tom Watson, the golfer. Agatha Christie, who brought us many scintillating mystery novels, Virgo. Salma Hayek, I'm telling you, man, these Virgo women, they're beauties. They're beauties. Let's see. Macaulay Culkin, Virgo, annoying as fuck. Whitey Bulger. We got some pretty heavy duty criminal energy here in Virgo. Criminal energy in Virgo. That is really interesting. It's got to be Pisces. Got to be that Piscean back end. So a lot of these guys wind up in prison, which is very Piscean. Tom Watson was a hell of a golfer, by the way. Let's see. Who else do we have? Richard Gere. He's a Virgo. Doesn't he seem like a Virgo? Do you believe the dribble story, by the way? Do you guys remember that? Like, that was the thing. Like, put the dribble up the ass because it felt really good. Like, and he had to have it removed. Do you guys believe that story? It's kind of weird, right? Kind of a weird little story. But for Virgo, I don't know. Maybe it's the anal thing. Maybe he was being anal unretentive or trying to be. Goethe, of course, a Virgo. We got some intellectual heavyweights here in this sign. We're going to throw down Team Virgo. Who else? Sylvester James Jr., also known as Sylvester, who is one of the legends of the gay disco scene in San Francisco. And he was a singer. Worked with a guy by the name of Patrick Cowley. And I'm sure that Freddie Mercury and Sylvester crossed paths at one point in time with one of Freddie Mercury's legendary romps through San Francisco. Who else do we have? Tarsila del Amaral. Here we'll do one more page. Let's just do 200 through 201. Of course, Sean Connery. Bond, James Bond. One of the badass Virgos, Mr. Scotland. You never ever got a sense, like, that guy was really a Virgo. You never got a sense he ever fucked up. Like, even when he went on a talk show and talked about how women need to get slapped every now and then, like, it never fucked up his career. You know, taxes, too much in England, he leaves. I'm going to Jamaica. Right. I mean, he just laughed. He said, fuck it. You didn't get my money. So he lived a kind of Virgoan life. He was very dedicated to his wife, by the way, when he finally married. But he was known to have, of course, affairs on the set. He had one with Jill St. John. Diamonds Are Forever. But he's a Virgo, and he played his roles to perfection. And he was into the body. He figured out a way to, bodybuilder. I think he started off as a club bouncer and a day laborer in London. That's how he got to start. Jack Kirby, one of my favorite comic book artists. I had a cease and desist from Jack Kirby's son one time. I used one of his images for a blog post, and he found it, and he told me he would sue me if I kept it up. And his father would have appreciated astrology. Love Jack Kirby's art. He communicated from his son Not so much. John McCain, Virgo, of course. You know, he's like, oh yeah, he's a wild card. He's a maverick. He's a maverick. They were trying to equate him to Top Gun. There's no fucking thing that John McCain was ever a maverick about. Not happy to share the sign with him. Keith Flint, the late Keith Flint from Prodigy, Virgo. The guy who's running India apparently is a Virgo, Mr. Modi. It's his birthday. September 17th, 1950. The 15th and current Prime Minister to India, navigating their country into BRICS. And he must be incredibly proud that their lunar lander touched down on the face of the moon a couple days ago. That is the worst fucking CGI I've ever seen. I'm sorry. Terrible. Bill Murray, Virgo. Virgos are funny people. They're funny people. They have great senses of humor. Right beneath them, Adam Sandler. Adam, hey, he might not be your type of humor, but sometimes he can be very funny. Bill Murray, clearly funny, looking a lot more like an old Irishman who's tippled a bit over the course of his lifetime. And apparently he's dating Khalees, which I find very odd, but I certainly wouldn't hold that against him. Gene Kelly, the dancer, a Virgo. Keith Moon. You know, Keith Moon was a Virgo. When I found out that he was a Virgo, I was actually shocked. Because his behavior was really very un-Virgo-like. But I think at that point, you have to, again, invoke the spirit of the fish, the spirit of Pisces. He died young. Keith Moon was like 38 years old when I remember when he died. I remember hearing about it. I was in my car and I was getting gas on El Camino in Belmont, California. And I think wasn't there even like, I think there might have been gas rationing or some stupid shit like that. I think my license ended in an odd number. Who knows? That's what we were going through. But he was a Virgo. I found it to be very interesting. I'd have to look at his chart, see what else is going on. Cameron Diaz. Hey, look. Attractive woman, Virgo. Henry V. How about that? Virgo. Larry Hagman. It's interesting that Larry Hagman is a Virgo. September 21st, same birthday as Bill Murray. And I Dream of Jeannie, Barbara Eden, both Virgos. Stars in the same show. That could work. Shinzo Abe, the late guy, the late dude from Japan, Virgo. Keanu Reeves is a Virgo. Keanu Reeves is going to be, 50 next year? 60. I think it's 60 next year. Yeah, Keanu Reeves will be 60 years old next year. When that comes out, it's going to fucking blow people's minds. Keanu Reeves is very Virgo-like. He's kind of humble. And, if we believe that, and I do, I think if we're looking at a historical Jesus and he's born on 9/11, Keanu Reeves plays all these characters who are very Christ-like. And in The Matrix, it says that his birthday, if I'm not mistaken, is 9/11/2001. So he's actually sharing Jesus' birthday. And Keanu Reeves has played the role of Cyber Christ on more than one occasion. Interesting. The beautiful Greta Garbo, Virgo. Vera Miles, Virgo. The oddball Tim Burton, Virgo. Did you know Marco Polo was a Virgo? I was not aware of that. I'm a little more proud of my sign. This dipshit's a Virgo. Stephen King, I knew he was a Virgo. Oh my God. Nothings. Bernard Langer, pretty good golfer, Virgo. Colin Firth, excellent actor, Virgo. Who else do we have here? Red Auerbach. This guy's a total Virgo. He was a chess player, man. The NBA was playing checkers and Red Auerbach was playing chess. Twiggy, the beautiful Twiggy, Virgo. I knew Frank Robinson from Oakland, California, Virgo. Lenny Bernstein was when's his birthday? We should look at his chart at some point. When's his birthday? August 25th. Oh shit, just passed. Leonard Bernstein was a fucking party animal. Let me see if I can find his chart. His debauchery was legendary. He didn't have many boundaries, and he loved alcohol and drugs. Leonard Bernstein did not leave a lot of tread on the tire. Let's put it that way. Let's look at this chart. Here we go. All right. Let's see if we can find the wild side of Leonard in his chart. Oops, my bad. Hold on. Okay, so first of all, Scorpio rising. Mars in Scorpio, 12th house. All right, so he's got some, I think he's got some heavy kink going on here. Like this is dungeon shit. Mars in Scorpio in the 12th. There's that, and then square Uranus. Is that a square? That's a Uranus square to his ascendant. What's Mars doing? It's squaring Neptune and it's squaring Venus. Yeah. He's into pleasure too, right? Venus Neptune conjunction in Leo. Adulation. This is a guy that used his position and his power. And then he's got Pluto and Jupiter in Cancer in the 8th house. Ooh. And Moon in Aries. Right. So he just immediate gratification. Clearly with his sun conjunct the midheaven, he meets all the qualifications of, well known or seen in his field as somebody with some degree of authority or an expert or a brand, right? That's how the sun works there. It is Mercury and Virgo over here. So he's a writer, composer, of course, the director. That's what he is. But yeah, I think Lenny has some kink going on. Definitely has some kink going on. Uranus squaring his ascendant. And right there, Mars trying Pluto, trying Jupiter. Insatiable appetite. This guy had an insatiable appetite. Let's put it that way. All right. Any more interesting Virgos? Let's see. Let's just finish out this page. One last page, and then we're going to get into this Black Madonna thing that I want to talk about. All right. So here we go. Right there. Finish up this Virgo. Jane Curtin. So 3 people from Saturday Night Live. Virgos. The beautiful Chrissy Hind. Virgo. Harry Connick Jr. Virgo. Paul Harvey, who was one of America's great broadcasters, columnists, kind of a voice for the common man. That's a very Virgo thing. Bob Newhart, very Virgo, tongue-in-cheek, wry humor. Everybody loved Bob Newhart. And even Newhart is kind of a Virgo name. Or like after Leo, you have Virgo, and it's a Newhart. Upton Sinclair, the novelist, always wrote about the underclass. Barry White, I don't think he ate like a Virgo. I think Barry White had big appetite. Jennifer Hudson, Virgo. Wilhelm Keitel, Virgo. Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols. There's another guy, fucking party animal. Virgo. Uta Pipping, Virgo. Althea Gibson, the great track star, Virgo. Jimmy Connors, Virgo. Zendaya, Virgo. Pink, Virgo. Now, here's another guy, Virgo, Oral Hershiser. He threw more consecutive scoreless innings than Don Drysdale, who had held the record. So let's go back and look at our baseball players. Last player to hit 400, Virgo, Ted Williams. The player to beat, and by the way, without any kind of steroids, I'm saying asteroids, Roger Maris with the asterisk, more home runs than Babe Ruth. You had Cal Ripken starting more consecutive games than Lou Gehrig. And then you have Oral Hershiser, Virgo, throwing more consecutive scoreless innings than Don Drysdale. They're all Virgos. There's something about perfection and setting standards that is naturally a part of the sign. Jimmy Connor's the enfant terrible. Now, some people think Pink is a dude. Do you think Pink is a dude? I think with Virgo, you can kind of see some of that. You can see Mother Teresa kind of leaning into dudedom. But some people again think Kel Welch is a dude. I don't think she was a dude. But as part of the dialogue here, a lot of people think Pink is a dude. So there you go. Is still. Who else do we have? Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens. Another funny guy. Virgo. Rest in peace. I used to love Pee Wee. Pee Wee's plays. Lennox Lewis, Virgo. Shirley Booth. She played Hazel. I hated that fucking show. I talked about it. I hated that fucking show. Mr. B. It's like, hey, let's have a show about a maid. And the maid will be smarter and nicer than everybody else in the house. And she'll actually that's kind of like the basis of The Nanny. Like they just stuck Fran Drescher in there and it was like a kind of a remix of Shirley Booth's show, Hazel. I hated that show. Mr. B. The great D.H. Lawrence, one of the great novelists of all time, Virgo. George Wallace, Virgo. Claudette Colbert, another beauty, Virgo. Sam Neill, very underrated actor, Virgo. Margaret Sanger. So, unfortunately, she fits the mold, right? Margaret Sanger is a eugenicist. And what does Virgo do? Oh, hey, look, let's manage these people out. Yeah, let's start Planned Parenthood. That'll really help us. Let's start Planned Parenthood. Let's put them in black neighborhoods. Yeah, why don't we do that? Like that is like dark fucking Virgo. That is Margaret Sanger. There are people in this sign that I kind of want to have a divorce with, and she's one of them. But again, you know, it's Virgo. She's a Virgo, so you have to. She's a model, right? She's a model for dark Virgo. I wonder what her chart looks like. I know we're just cruising around the internet tonight, and I do have more programming here, things that we can look at. You know, sometimes going off the res, we got in trouble for saying that one time. Sometimes breaking with protocol, going off the res, can be interesting. Let's see what we have here, Sanger's chart. Oh, we might be able to have maybe a little look-see into the eugenics program. Oh my God, I think she's got Saturn right around the same degree in Aries retrograde as let me do this, Scott. As here, let's do this. As guess who? Gavin Newsom. Interesting. Saturn Aries retrograde. I have to look at Newsom. It's close. Close. Very interesting. So yeah, look, I mean, we're trying to find things like eugenics, perhaps some Arianism in there. Saturn, highest planet in the chart, in Aries retrograde, and it is opposing. What is it? Venus and Libra. There's Virgo, 21 degrees. Leo rising. I also think Mars Pluto. Yeah, I mean Mars Pluto in Taurus. That's sort of, I see that as like the in utero rotor, right? Like Mars and Pluto, Taurus. You could, if I went into this deep enough, we could probably make a connection in a reasonable case that this could look like abortion with Mars Pluto, because the Taurus is about birth and life force, and Mars Pluto together there, ooh, and they're squaring. Looks like they're squaring Uranus, Mars, Uranus square, Pluto, Uranus square. Yeah, especially in Virgo, and she has a Virgo. Is that a Leo moon? Leo moon. So a bit of a sense of entitlement. No, it's a Virgo moon, is it? Hold on. What degree is that? 25. Leo moon. A bit of a sense of entitlement. The queen of eugenesis. There you go, little Margaret Sanger. All right, let's finish this out. Let's see who else. James Gandolfini, he was a Virgo. Elvis Costello is a Virgo. Bernie Sanders is a Virgo. I remember that. He's a total Virgo, isn't he? He's a team player. He'll take one for the team. Let's see. Rupert Grint. Is this guy from Harry Potter? I don't know much about. Jimmy Rogers, Virgo. Pilates Schiffer, another beautiful. This guy's on board on my birthday. I can't stand him. He's in Kathy O'Brien's book, by the way. Tommy Lasorda shows up there. I think he had the code for Kathy O'Brien to perform oral sex on him. I think she says that in her book. That he was eating spaghetti while it was happening. That's what she says. It's in her book. Who knew? Tommy Lasorda had handler codes. Charlie Bird Parker, Virgo. So I think a lot of times when you see Virgo, you're dealing with Pisces as the vast space behind their frontispiece. Dan Marino, I knew he was a Virgo. So you get into people like Charlie Parker, who was a big junkie, huge junkie. Unfortunately for a lot of these guys back then, their managers and people inside the record business were peddling dope to them. They wanted them to get strung out. They wanted to take advantage of their contracts, right? So some of it, I think, had to do with the lifestyle. Because when you, I've read people like Davis and Coltrane and Bird. They talk about the experience of playing improvisational jazz live. And when you really open up, and I wouldn't know about it because I'm not an improvisational jazz player, but I can only surmise that when you open up and it's really amazing and great, and you're having this communication at a really high level with other people, and it's incredibly emotional and intense and deep and thrilling and inspiring and soulful, like in all those different iterations. And then you have the crowd who is sort of amplifying everything back. That'd be really powerful. Like really, really powerful. Like that, if you get into that space inside your solo and you cut loose like Bird and you're just soaring and you're free and experiencing things that other people can't experience. I mean, let's be real about it. This is a very novel type of expression. And then you have to come back from that, right? You have to come back from the beauty and the freedom and all those things, the unity inside of the music. And then you're back in the day-to-day world and you look around and you go, man, this place is really, fucked up, right? Because I was in this amazing groove with these other people, and man, I mean, it's not always like that in jazz, but coming back is the downer. So a lot of times that's when they would seek out their heroin, because it made the come down from the music more palatable. But then you had people inside of the industry that were taking advantage of them. Not good. Not good. Who else do we have here? Prince Harry, Virgo. Patrick Mahomes, A great young quarterback, Virgo. Leonard Cohen, Virgo. Who else? There's a bunch more. I still think Leonard Cohen is Anthony Bourdain's father. All right. That's a little tour through Virgo and some riffage. Let's see where we are with everybody. Let me check in the chat. Let's see. As a musician, I can attest to that. See, there you go. Peter knows what I'm talking about. Like you just don't find it in other places and spaces when you're off and you're communicating at a super high level, right? It's like channeling, is really what it is. Although it's probably, if you're a jazz musician, you would hate that term. But yeah, so the come down from that, I think, would be really hard. Really, really hard. Let's see what else. What else? Any other comments here? Parker was a genius. Truly, yeah. I mean, he invented bebop. Charlie Parker invents bebop. Let's see. What else do we have here? We have Atlantis Rising. Welcome, Atlantis Rising. I'm just going through looking at some renounce your Virgo. Never. I'm in it to win it. I'm gonna see if we have some good quotes in here, or some good comments. Richard Attenborough, amazing director and actor, and a Virgo too. That's true. Absolutely. Pink is owned by Pfizer. She might be owned by more than Pfizer. Pfizer might be a middleman for Pink. Let's see who else. Pink has the Adonis muscle thing. Pee Wee Herman. The Pee Wee's Playhouse was great. Freddie Mercury was a Virgo. We covered a little Freddie there. Pink is not a dude. She's very beautiful in person. Okay. I didn't make any claims. I'm just saying that some people have mentioned that. Let's see. She's not a dude. She's just masculine. Okay. So we have some difference of opinion on Pink. It's good. Having a difference of opinion is good. Hello, Paper Dragon. How are you? Welcome to the show. Jackie Delaria, Philly Girl, is here. Okay. Let's see. She would be a very short guy. She's pretty small. I remember that. Let's hear about the Black Madonna. All right. Let's get into the Black Madonna. And then, okay, so here's what we'll do. We'll do Black Madonna. We'll do Chart of the Moment. And then we'll do Black Madonna, Josh Green, the governor from Hawaii, and then we'll do the Chart of the Moment. Okay. So let me go into the Black. Here, let's do this. I'm going to pull this up. So let's take a look at these images of the Black Madonna. Because we know that the Madonna, or the Virgin, relates to the sign of Virgo and the virgin birth, which, by the way, would relate to somebody being born in the month of September versus the month of December. Just saying. So here we have these images of the Black Madonna. Now, Chesta Tochawa is where, or Chesta Tochawa is where a lot of these images of the Black Madonna appear. I believe it's in Poland. You'll also see them in Montserrat. And then you'll also see images of the Black Madonna in places like the south of France and Spain. So the depiction of the Black Madonna is just that she is black, she's Moorish, right? That is the depiction of the Black Madonna. Here, she looks fairly white, but again, Moorish. And the the king, the young king, who here is the Prince of Peace, also appears as Moorish as well, right? Looking very kind of Western, but also very Moorish. And here we have in Montserrat, the Black Madonna. Actually, I think it's made, is it made out of onyx or basalt? One of the two, right? Clearly a Black Madonna in Montserrat. This is from the William Turner Gallery, right? The triptych, Black Madonna. This is a picture from a Wikipedia posting of the Black Madonna. Again, looking very, very black, right? Very black, Moorish in content. Okay, so I thought about, and this is the Black Madonna of Częstochowa, which I believe it's in Poland, if I'm not mistaken, or it has its Polish roots. So this is actually in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Wow. Okay. So the icon of Our Lady of Częstochowa has been intimately associated with Poland for the last 600 years. Its history before it arrived in Poland is shrouded in numerous legends that trace the icon's origin to Luke the Evangelist, who painted it on a cedar tabletop from the Holy Family House. The same legend holds that the painting was discovered in Jerusalem in 326 by Helena, who brought it back to Constantinople and presented it to her son, Constantinople. Great. The oldest documents from Yasna Gora state that the picture traveled from Constantinople via bells. Eventually, it came of Vladislav Opolchek, Duke of Opol, an advisor to Louis of Anjou, King of Poland. So this is the historical kind of paper trail or legacy of the Black Madonna. So at some point, it becomes declared the Queen and Protector of Poland, which is quite interesting. And then they have these legends around the appearance of the Black Madonna. So I guess now it is actually in Pennsylvania. So here's another, this is a mosaic of the Black Madonna, and this is at the Yasna. And there are popes that recognized the Black Madonna. So outside of Poland, it's been venerated. The Black Madonna has been venerated in Ukraine and Belarus. There is the Lady of Częstochowa Roman Catholic Church in Houston. There's a copy hanging inside the church to the left of its altar. So there you go. It's here. It's also connected to the Haitian voodoo or Vodun religion. So due to its Africanized image, the icon has been syncretized. It means it's been melded together with other religions. But some voodoo practitioners to the deity is Zile Dantor, the main Loa of the Petro family in Haitian voodoo. It is hypothesized that the image was introduced into Haiti by reproductions of the Black Madonna brought by Polish soldiers who sided with the rebels during the Haitian Revolution. So she became an icon, right? So the Black Madonna is really interesting. And again, it has its roots in right around 3,300, right around there. And I believe, like I said, it is now in, I think it's in Pennsylvania. Okay, so let's go back to the image of these Black Madonnas, right? So here we go. More Black Madonna. Now, this woman is not the Black Madonna, although she goes by Black Madonna, but she's white. And apparently she's a very well-known DJ. can't go there. Here's another image of this Black Madonna. Okay. So I began to think, well, look at this. Black Madonna, Beyonce projects. And now we have, this is interesting because now we're talking about the Black Madonna and Beyonce. You remember earlier on I said we would come back to Beyonce and the veneration of Beyonce as the queen and Black Madonna? Here it is. This is exactly the imagery. And the Black Madonna is also connected to Isis, which is a virgin goddess, right? It's a virgin Taurian fertility goddess. Right? Taurus in that it's fertile, Virgo in that it tends to the needs of the baby, right? So now we have, and by the way, I have it on good word that Beyonce is actually really Sicilian. I'm just going to keep it there. I'm going to keep it there. She's actually Sicilian, very dark Sicilian, but those are her roots. So it's not like she maybe isn't an African queen, but if she is, it's coming around from the Horn, right, and coming up through Sicily. Like that's where her family's roots are, believe it or not. Anyway, but this is what we're looking at, and she's a Virgo. You see, so now they have the Black Madonna. This, whatever you think of Beyonce, like she's an archetype, and she's posing as this modern, postmodern version of the Black Madonna. So I've been thinking about why Beyonce, and why are, if you, okay, just look around, just go with me here. Why are people like Oprah Winfrey popular? Why is Kamala Harris vice president of the United States, even though when she was running for president, she had an approval rating of about 0.5%. Why is she vice president? Why is it that Lanny Willis has been tasked with being Donald Trump's Pontius Pilate? You know, why is it that what's her name? The big Taurus singer, right? Why is she popular? Why has the image of the Black female and Black woman been venerated and elevated during our time? Think about it. Oprah, most successful talk show host ever in history, probably more views than even Johnny Carson because of her viewership and the frequency of her shows. But I could go on. You have the Woman King, which is this kind of post Black Panther send-up, who is this Black African chieftain queen, right? Who is going to, lead a fight against the slave traders, right? Even the Black Panther was replaced by a woman, a Black woman, and it is through her that she's able to defeat, the Submariner and all this other shit, right? So this is really an important thing to wrap your head around. Why do some of these kind of slightly idiotic hosts on CNN get promoted, right? Why have the cities of America, right, been populated by Black American female mayors? What is really going on here? So I've thought about this. And is it a political maneuver, right? Or so is this what we're going to do? We on the white liberal left will elevate this group, and they will take positions of power inside of these various levels of government, local government, right, all the way up through state government, all the way to the federal government. And again, now we have Kamala Harris against all popularity elevated to vice president. Is that part of the program? And by doing that, do they keep their so-called black men in line? Because the black men are not the ones that are being venerated. Yeah, I know Steve Harvey has a show, but his show came way after Oprah Winfrey. You understand what I'm saying? Like we're seeing some of Barack Obama clearly was given the title of president in this country. So what is going on here? Why is this happening? And I clearly remember I got into a bit of a debate with this woman on Twitter, and she was from the Bay Area, and she was a kind of a radical, right? Like code pink, radical lesbian. I don't know about the lesbian part, but she kind of came across that way. And we were talking about politics and money and economics. And I wanted to see how far I could have a conversation with her without just saying, I'm leaving the room. And it was about maybe 3 or 4 tweets. And then finally at the end, she said to me, I hope you join me in joining in with our Black African sisters who are going to lead the revolution and restore order in the new world. Like, she was recruiting me to do that. And it wasn't like this group of underprivileged people. No, there was a group that she was serving that she firmly believed would be game changers. Okay. So I thought about this on political terms. And to some degree, it makes sense if you kind of line it up. But then I thought to myself, what if the Black Madonna is an image of Sophia? Okay, now it began to make more sense. Sophia, of course, the creative mother of this world, but one who participated in an error. And through that error, it allowed the demiurges or the archons to run things on the fallen world. And so there would have to be a Sophiac correction, right? That's how the Gnostics believe that the universe is, oh, look who's here, the man. Hey, your crown is ready for you. That's what they believe, that the universe could be reset, right? Like once the Sophiac correction happens, that it would be the end of this fallen world. And I thought to myself, are the people who are in positions of power, are they Gnostics? What do you think? Are they Gnostic? Well, clearly, if you get into Paulo Freire and Foucault and even Marx, you will find Gnosticism all over that stuff. Like, it is fueled by Gnosticism. But are they, by elevating people like Kamala Harris and Oprah Winfrey, are they attempting to initiate the Sophiac correction? Is this what's happening? And is the Sophiac correction the elevation of the persona of the Black Madonna? So I looked into it a little bit, and I found this really interesting post. Where is it? It's right here. So it's the Sophia Foundation. And then there is another, where is it? It was from UTSA. Is it here? So I can just pull this up. I had this prior to the show, and it goes into great detail with exactly what I'm talking about. So I can find this paper. Yeah, it's right here. And this is from a professor in right here in San Antonio, UTSA, University of Texas, San Antonio. And it is from, I think, either a doctoral thesis or this paper that was written about the Black Madonna in Sophia. I think it's in Ovations. It's in a magazine called Ovations. And it's produced by the University of Texas in San Antonio. And where is this piece? It's right in here. Right. Okay. That's what we're talking about. The Black Madonna in ancient and modern times. So here, let me go back. Why do we get into this? This is from the Sophia Foundation. So it talks about the Black Madonna, a divine mystery veiled in blackness. And she quotes Blavatsky and The Secret Doctrine. So it talks about the Black Madonna, an image of divinity shrouded in darkness, is enshrined in countless pilgrim churches, in remote monasteries, in tiny chapels and vast cathedrals, in dark crypts upon high altars, in Sicily, Spain, Switzerland. Okay, we determined all of that. Black Madonna is the archetypal counterpart of the Virgin Mary. So they're not the same. It is the archetypal counterpart in which they interrelate as the yin, yang of the Taoist symbol, create the whole of each half the other contains. The Black Madonna is known as the Queen of the Earth. Mary is the Queen of Heaven. Who created the earth? Sophia. Sophia created the earth. So I am putting forth that the Black Madonna is Sophia. Like that is the identification of Sophia. And so what we see here in our world, in the elevation, and I'm not saying that there aren't capable Black women who can hold very capable roles. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that every Black woman in our culture is an elevated fetish, but there's something to this. There's something to this momentum that has been rising with, again, putting people like Kamala Harris as vice president of the United States, right? Think about Michelle Obama for a moment. Think about Michelle Obama as running for vice president or Michelle Obama as being president. That's a whole other discussion. But that would be that would in some ways be the manifestation of the Sophia correction. Like if you had somebody, and I'm not saying that this is what they should do. Trust me, I'm not. But in their minds, they being Gnostics, and not all, some, you mean some Gnostics who are alchemists and that's how they practice their life. And, you know, their goal is to stay in touch with Sophia and have the revelation from Sophia, right? You'll also find people like Paulo Freire and Marx. They're Gnostics. James Lindsay has gone down this path, right? So Gnostics have it's a tripartite religion. You have Christianity, right? You have Christianity, then you have agnosticism, and then you have Gnosticism. There's in agnosticism, you also have scientism that's kind of in the agnostic realm, right? So what we're looking at with this Black Madonna, and go back to Beyonce, whom they venerated as the Black Madonna, who is a Virgo. So the Virgo is a symbol of both Mary and the Black Madonna. So that's why we're talking about the Black Madonna during the month of Virgo. And we're talking about it in terms of Sophia, and Sophia being the creator of the world and the mother of wisdom, right? So when you have the Sophiac revelation, or you have the Sophiac epiphany, right? That is part of how Gnosticism operates, that you have a kind of mystical revelation that your life can be open to. It's like again, it's like a download, right? But there's also the dark side of Gnosticism. There is a dark side of Gnosticism. And when you get into people like Marx, who was a total Gnostic, then you delve into like Gnostics as archons, or a type of Gnosticism that is probably been penetrated by archons, theoretically, right? So there is this kind of dark. So it's really interesting to see this cultural momentum, ultimately manifest in somebody like Kamala Harris, or manifest in somebody like Michelle Obama. Because I think what is going is that they are attempting to trigger the Sophia correction. That thought has been running through my head for a while now. And it's a really touchy subject to kind of bring, because what is being put forth here is that, well, these people aren't being raised up by their own merits. Well, that's not really true, because there are plenty of people who are, right? I'm just talking about cultural icons, and even to some degree being put into positions of power inside of government. And then again, from a cinematic perspective, the movie roles, like the Woman King, the new Black Panther, they all kind of meet this criterion in a lot of ways. So that's what I wanted to get into is this connection with Virgo and Mary and the Black Madonna, and the Black Madonna being Queen of the Earth being Sophia, and then the Sophia correction by the elevation of the Black Madonna into positions of power and influence. And whatever you think of Beyonce has a lot of influence. I think she's dumb as a rock, but she has a lot of influence. And she's again venerated as this queen, right? And there's an actual Black Madonna project and photo shoot with Virgo Beyonce as the Black Madonna. So this is just something I've been thinking about for a while. And I thought tonight would be a really interesting time to bring it up. And when you look at these people in Lahaina and in Maui, it just feels like at the center of it all is Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is at the center of that entire universe in Maui, right? And now she's even being videotaped, like in town and helping people, and she's volunteering. So will Aquarius Oprah, will she play the role of Sophia in correcting the mistakes of Lahaina? Just an open thought there. There you go. I heard dumb as the rock. No, dumb as a rock. No, the rock ain't dumb. She's got a high following. I think it's a disservice to lump these power-hungry psychos in with original Gnosticism. Well, that may be the case. But if people are trying to trigger the Sophiac correction, and again, the elevation of the Black Madonna through position, power, and pop culture, just saying, right? I'm not trying to lump them in. I'm trying to make a case that what we're witnessing vis-a-vis the exposition of these people through pop culture and this idea of the Black Madonna is that they want to somehow trigger this Sapphic correction, for better or worse. And you can look, I love William Blake. William Blake's my favorite Gnostic. I love his stuff. I think he's great. We're not talking William Blake here. All right, let's see. It's intention behind archetypes that matter. The darkness muddy the waters with everything. Being extra gentle with Black women lately. That's interesting. Well, I would say this is true. That many Black folk have been disappointed by Obama's promises. Absolutely. I'll tell you who's waking up is the Black man in the Black community. So Cato says, every day I witness a Black woman losing her shit. It was not like this before. I want to say less than a year ago. Well, that has been popularized and promoted and gone viral, right? And that is, I would say, a demonic interpretation or demonic manifestation of that. But yeah, no, it's, you know, it literally is the negative side of what I would call this Sapphic veneration of the Black Madonna. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up tonight because to me, it was always like, okay, why is this happening? Besides the political stuff and how advantageous it can be politically. I get it. ESG scores, I get it, right? But I thought to myself, this is deeper than that. This is deeper than just having this group of people essentially become administrators, you know, in a very ironic way, right? That's what it felt like. So then I thought to myself, well, why? Why is this happening? Well, it's because of this connection archetypally to the Black Madonna. And that by putting the Black Madonna in a position of power, president perhaps, that would be the solution to the Sapphic correction. I'm just putting it out there. Because on some level, it actually fits. And that has nothing to do with the older ancient Gnostics. Like my guy, I think Dante was a Gnostic too. Let's see. Beyonce followers are called the Hive. Yes. Agreed. Totally. Beyonce is hosting another being inside. Yeah, I mean, when she was at that Nets game, she was really off her rocker, wasn't she? Realizing you're someone's fetish and their useful idiot gotta piss you off. I would say so. I would totally say so. Let's see. What else? I heard Bay. It was a secret, or yeah, they call her Queen Bay, right? BEY. Of course, they avert everything. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think the Crimmies did a good job dissecting Lindsay's viewpoint. I think they did. Steve is a Gnostic, so he's going to defend his position. And I don't think James Lindsay's wrong. Honestly, I don't think he's wrong. Although it bums me out that he doesn't get William Blake. I love William Blake. I don't think he's wrong about connecting Gnosticism with the with with Marx and some of the social Marxists, Gramsci and Fieri and Foucault. It's in there. It's totally in there. It is inarguable, right? I think the Crimmies were saying that James Lindsay doesn't get the totality of Gnosticism, and that may be true. But I don't think James Lindsay was wrong in his deconstruction of Gnosticism as it relates to socialism. All right, let's do a chart of the moment, and then we'll look at Josh Green's chart. Let me pull his chart off here. All right, let's do a quick chart of the moment. Let's see where we are. I feel like we're going to have a big deluge with this second full moon coming up. I think we're going to have a big deluge. It feels that way. Let's see what we have here. Let's do chart of the moment. Home. Let's do that. It's the second full moon. It's the blue moon. I think it's on the 31st. It has been incredibly dry, and it just feels like that this big, fat, swollen full moon is just going to dump. That's what I think. Here, let me go here. I'm just going to do a chart. Have to change the place of origin. Give me 1 sec. Okay. So let's get in here. Here we go. All right. Chart of the moment. Chart of the moment. All right, here we go. So we have Mars at 0 Libra. It has arrived. It has arrived. Let's talk about Mars and Libra. Mars and Libra is argumentative. So I kick off a little conversation starter about the dark or black Madonna, the Queen of the Earth, Beyonce, and the Gnostics and the Sophia correction. That is a good conversation starter for Mars 0 Libra. Mars and Libra is debate energy. So for this next Mars cycle, get ready. Get ready to defend your position with Mars and Libra. That's how Mars and Libra works. And sometimes you'll be on the offensive. Sometimes you'll be on the defensive. Tonight, we have a nice little trine going on with Mars and the Moon and Pluto. It is still mathematically in trine, and it'll begin to separate as Mars moves further into Libra. When Mars gets to the end of that cycle and starts squaring Pluto, that's intense. That's going to be very intense. It feels like as Mars moves through Libra, there's more, you got to discharge the Mars. There's more grievance. There's more attitude. There's more of a sense of things not being just enough, right? That Mars and Libra is social justice. I put this on Twitter the other day. It is so. Ocasio-Cortez, who happens to be a Libra, has Mars in Libra. Her Mars is at 16 degrees Libra. She is the epitome. Again, whatever you think of her, right? Whatever you think of her, she's a lightweight, she's a nobody. She is the epitome of the social justice warrior. Mars and Libra, 16 degrees. If you look at the progressed US chart, guess where Mars is? It's at 16 degrees Libra. So Ocasio-Cortez's Mars lines up with the progressed US Mars on the dot, 16 degrees. So you ask yourself, well, what is there a reason why this person seems to be famous and seems to be on the front lines of everything that is a fucking cliche when it comes to being a social justice warrior? I mean, is she a plant? Sure, I think she's a plant. Her father's got connections with NASA, some other groups. He's a little spooky. Like, her story doesn't line up. She's not, Jenny from the block, right? That's not her story. No, she's not. She comes from Westchester County, comes from money, good schooling. She won some kind of a fucking exam, went to NASA. She went to NASA, had a little bit of a tour, a little internship, right? She's not Allie from the block. And the whole story about her tending bar and whatever, right? It's part of the mythos. So she's got this background, but she also is connected to this progressed US Mars. And I remember when she got elected, this is something to just file away. Just file this away for whatever reason, or you want to go back and just say, you know what, when somebody says something next time, maybe I should pay attention. Because when she was elected and she started talking about the new Green Deal and all the money and everything that she was going to make happen, in my Virgoan kind of rationality, I'm thinking, well, that'll never work. It'll take too much money to retrofit these cities, and all the things that she's proposing to do can't happen. Guess what? They're happening. They are happening right before our very eyes. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was telling you exactly what was going to happen. And it's happening. It's happening, right? And whatever you think about her, like nincompoop, nitwit, all the above may apply. But with her Mars in Libra, conjunct natal U.S. progressed Mars in Libra, she is in sync with the direction of the country. Whether you want to agree with it or not, or believe it or not, like, that person is aligned with where the progressed Mars is. Now, whether or not she'll do anything or become president, which I'm sure at some point they would love to have President Ocasio-Cortez, no doubt. And she spends most of her time on TikTok when she's not running around Washington, cultivating all of her little fandom, right? Her followers are there. So this is about Mars and Libra. And I would assume that as Mars moves through Libra, what's it going to do? It is going to light up the Ocasio-Cortez profile. And we'll see her, and she'll make stunning announcements. Maybe she'll get an award. Who knows, right? But we're in this territory where it's going to align with her sun sign and her Mars. But that's also kind of where we are in terms of Mars, where we're dealing with debate, the public square, the standing up for your rights versus somebody else's rights, or, whose rights are going to win out. And it's, you can work out compromise with Mars and Libra, but it's not easy, right? Mars and Libra is way more aggressive than people understand. It is, Mars, you think Mars in Aries is aggressive. Mars in Aries is naturally aggressive, but sometimes Mars in Aries does not go looking for a fight. Mars in Aries naturally expresses its direct energy output and manifestation. Mars in Libra will look for a fight. Mars in Libra will look for a fight. Absolutely 100%. Now, it needs a cause. If you have Mars in Libra, you need a cause. You do. There's nothing wrong with having a cause. You need a cause. Dedicate yourself to something that you feel like you can be an advocate for. It's not that hard. Because if you don't have a cause, if there's something that you're not standing up for, then that energy gets redirected elsewhere with your relationships. And you don't want that showing up in your relationship, right? You don't want to be constantly picking fights and making up and picking fights and making up unless you get turned on by that in a relationship. If you have a cause, then you can channel that energy elsewhere, unless the person that you're in a relationship with is somebody you're doing business with, or you have a shared cause. Mars and Libra can be very good for that. So try to cultivate that with Mars and Libra. And we're just getting into it, like we're at 0, so the energy is ripe for the picking, as they say. We have Mercury retrograde. Of course, we're talking about, what's going to happen with, the carjack and COVID and restrictions and everything that is just being chattered about, right? And I think this new strain is called Eris, isn't it? Eris. Oh, you know who's another version of this Black Madonna? Is Meghan Markle. It's another version. Why do you, look, the royal family can go this or this, right? This or this. Basically they said to Harry, hey, right? Again, I know we're backtracking here. It's a Mercury retrograde. We're about 20 minutes back. But does Mercury retrograde represent the replay of COVID and all the just absolute nonsense that people had to go through during that time? I think there's a good chance we're going to have to revisit it. We had to revisit it. I think Biden signed a bill for like a new vaccine. Did you guys see that? It came out like 2 days ago. We're talking about, Lahaina, and somebody's got his pen and he's got their hand on his hand and he's going like this, right? So they signed an order for a new vaccine. So people are getting a little bit antsy with this. So Mars and Libra, and they're going to try to relaunch this thing with Mars and Libra. I don't think it's a good time. I don't think it's a good time for them. I think people with Mars and Libra are going to say, fuck that. And maybe that's what they want. Maybe they want the fuck that moment. Because Mars and Libra will not roll over and say, okay, we'll be good little boys and girls, and we'll shut our businesses down, and we'll take our kids out of school again, and we'll jump through all these hoops of fire again. I don't think it's going to work that way. Ain't happening. Ain't happening. This second full moon coming up in this month, which happens on the 31st, a mere 4 days from now, we'll put the moon right here, right? It'll be, let's see, 4 days from now, the sun will be at 8, be right there. So the moon will be just on the other side of Saturn. It'll clear Saturn. Again, I think that represents deluge. It's deluge. It's the release. It is the release of these effluvial waters. And some of them might be just connected to kind of an overdue time of the release of water, like from the heavens, right? Or flooding. We're talking about a hurricane coming up here, in Florida? Is that sort of brewing a little bit? We're talking 4 days here. Are we in hurricane season? I'm not familiar with hurricane season, but I can see this moon really acting up like that. The other thing is, again, we're talking about contagion, and contagion being released from this Pandora's box. And again, I know that Pandora, the whole thing with Pandora in the box is misunderstood. Okay, but we'll just use it for face value. They're talking about this vaccine that is linked to climate change through mosquitoes. So now these mosquitoes are bringing a certain type of encephalitis into the world. And they're linking this new vaccine because the mosquitoes supposedly are a byproduct of climate change. It's twisted logic. It's pretzel logic. But this is what they're doing now. Okay, so if we take this moon and we put it in Pisces, and we understand that this is a time of what deluge, flooding, the heavens long overdue. What is the byproduct of that? The byproduct of that is mosquitoes, and the potential for these waterborne diseases to emerge out of a new vector of mosquitoes. Remember that, right? This is your moon, and the moon is going through some interesting phases here. The first part is it's going to conjunct with Pluto. So tomorrow, when you wake up tomorrow, or when you wake up, or you're waking up now in some parts of the world, that moon is conjuncting Pluto. It's intense energy. It's very intense energy, and it's got a kind of playing for keeps energy. So I would say Monday is not trivial. It is just not another Monday tomorrow, especially as you go into work. You're really assessing, your connection to what you're doing, how you make money. Because down here, we're still in Taurus and things like assets and, hard assets. Mercury's retrograding. So again, there's some question. What am I doing? Am I valued? Am I being valued enough? Here's what I would say for tomorrow. Listen to what's going on around you. Pay close attention to what's going on around you tomorrow. You don't have to act. You don't have to act on anything, but listen intently. You will learn things tomorrow. Like when you go to work tomorrow, or if you're already at work, just listen intently. And if things if there's an air of intensity that surrounds whatever you're doing in the workforce tomorrow, air of intensity, gently ask questions. Don't ask questions that are too probing, right? Just gently ask questions. You can find out a lot tomorrow, right? Listen. Tomorrow is a very good day to listen and to listen intently. So I think we're gonna see some financial news tomorrow with this Moon Pluto conjunction. Now it's kind of unfettered, right? So I don't necessarily think it's bad, but I would also look at the allocation of money for troops. Look for the allocation of money for the army, right? So is this going to go to Ukraine on a collective level, like as part of our story? This is moving money and assets and resources to Mars to level the playing field, to win the day, to come to the aid of the just as they are doing battle against the forces of the unjust. So look for financial news tomorrow. Look to it as it relates to the military industrial complex in Ukraine. The other thing that's interesting is that Tucker Carlson has requested an interview with Vladimir Putin. And Putin is a Libra, whoever Putin is. That'll be interesting. That came out yesterday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But it's this full moon, and the full moon, as it just gets so close to being full, it's going to conjunct Saturn. So we're going to have this full moon conjunction with Saturn and opposing Virgo. And I'm not crazy about it. I'm not crazy about the energy. It's it feels very martyr-like. That's what it feels like. It feels very martyr-like. And taking advantage of people, because the one thing we know about Virgo is that the Virgo energy will go out of its way to stay safe and stay healthy. Virgos are fucking worry warts, right? That is the nature of Virgo. In hypochondria, I think, is not uncommon with Virgo and people or Virgo rising. Like they have very weird things. So if you wanted to kind of get back into people's heads, it would be during the month of Virgo with things that could be seemingly out of their control, right? And then you have this kind of governmental or authoritarian influence sort of over people, right? So we're really one lunar cycle. Well, let's see, we've got, so it's going to be 2 days. We're the 29th. We're 2 days away from this approach with the moon in Pisces conjuncting Saturn. Doesn't feel good. Does not feel good. Again, it feels like this potential for catastrophe. And just keep an eye on these hurricanes. Keep an eye on Florida. And then out of that, and maybe not in Florida, maybe it's somewhere else along that Gulf Coast region. And then we have this full moon and the deluge. It's the deluge. And then what happens after the deluge? And then we have eventually this moon moves into Aries. It's going to come in, it's going to conjunct with Neptune. This lunar cycle over the next 48 hours is going to be very intense. And it's interesting that we had the CGI craft in India called Luna, right? It was very interesting. Luna is whatever. And then the moon goes into Aries. And that is a martial moon. It's a very martial moon. And eventually it hooks up. So we're looking really at the progress, this kind of this lunation up. You know, it's kind of like a comet, theoretically, picking up this galactic debris. And that's what the moon is doing here. It's like soaking up Pluto, and then it soaks up this conjunction with Saturn, and then it's in this fullness, and everything just kind of dumps out from that place. And I think the aftermath, even with this moon conjunction of Neptune, this is kind of a big full moon. Remember, it's a blue moon. It is the second full moon of the month of August. And it's a powerful full moon. But one that I don't think is necessarily, I wouldn't call it providential. And it's because of the transit and then sort of the dump and then the move into Aries. And it's like that moon in Aries is, you know, take care of it now. Feels very demanding and demanding on the other side of these transits right here. Other than that, you know, just get ready, you know, because Mars in Libra is not gonna roll over here. Not gonna roll over. Ain't gonna happen. So they can theoretically try to reanimate what we've been through. But I'm not sure people. What's really interesting is the last time we really went down that trail with COVID, Mars was in Aries. It was in Aries. And I don't think people they were starting to get engaged. And then the whole George Floyd thing happened. But remember, I don't think Mars in Aries goes out of its way to make trouble. Mars in Aries doesn't work like that. Mars in Aries can be very determined, very aggressive when it needs to be. But it's not like Mars in Libra. So if they replay that scenario that happened in 2020, Mars is going to be in a different place. And I just don't think people are going to be real happy, especially with Mars and Libra. Now you get the other side, and you'll get the Karens. You'll get the army of Karens with Mars and Libra. They'll be out in force. And those wounds, those psychic wounds and those scars have not really healed. They have not healed. And pulling this out, the audacity of them pulling it out right now would be way over the top. It would be like, okay, you're going to get it again. Yeah, that's just mind blowing, right? But I don't think people are going to be into it. They're not going to be into it. Mars is just in a different place. What else we have? Venus retrograde Leo. I think that stops relatively soon, next week. As soon as it goes to 12, it's at 13. It's about the station. And I hope you've been doing some triage with your relationships with Venus retrograde Leo, or reconnecting with things that you love in your life, which is very Venus retrograde Leo. Okay, so there's our chart of the moment. The Grand Trine energy is still there. You still roll with it. But to get things done, unlike Mars and Virgo, where you can do things yourself, Mars and Libra, you're going to need cooperation. You're going to need cooperation. So find people you can do it with. Make sure you're on board. You're on the same team, and get her done. All right, we got one more chart here tonight, and then we got a little business, and then we're out of here. So the other chart that I wanted to look at was the governor of Hawaii, Josh Green. So I wanted to bring his chart up and just take a look at it. I don't have his birth time, so I put him at a noon chart. Ready to find his birth time? Let me know. That'd be great. So I guess if you're going to have a governor who's going to bring in a 15-minute city, this would be your guy. Sun in Aquarius. I was looking at this big tract of land that they're buying in California around Travis Air Force Base, where we're literally thousands of acres. It's huge, and it's this mysterious group, and they're going to be building this new city there, and people don't know like who is behind this group. They just know it's a group, and they know it's some tech guys. But they're going to start building out the 15-minute city, the Emerald Kingdom, right? The Emerald Palace. Like that's what they're building there. And what's interesting is I was looking at footage of Oakland and how downtown Oakland is just being emptied out. These cities, and this goes along with, again, what Ocasio-Cortez was talking about with the new Green Deal. Cities like Oakland will be abandoned. They will be abandoned. When you watch somebody like John Levi and you look at these abandoned cities from the Great Resets, that's what's going to happen. And these new cities that are going to open up and be completely ICLEI, WEF compliant, right? Those are going to be the new population centers. And cities like Oakland are going to die ultimately. And there are Oaklands all over the place. Towns like, even though it's a poor town, Stockton will die, Lodi will die, right? These places are going to die because they will not invest in the infrastructure in these places anymore. Like when you look at Oakland, California, you have the Oakland A's. The A's are leaving. They're leaving Oakland. All the baseball teams, all sports teams are leaving Oakland. After the A's leave, there won't be anybody there. The Raiders are gone. The Warriors went across the bay. The A's are moving to Las Vegas. And what's interesting is that the mayor of Oakland, her name is Thao. She's a second generation Hmong. So her parents are Cambodian. So her parents came through the killing fields. And apparently she had a very rough upbringing. But she lives in an apartment or she lives in a rental. She might live in a house, but it's a rental. And I thought to myself, it's a really interesting statement for a mayor. Like if you're a mayor, wouldn't you want to say, I live here, I invest here, I pay property taxes? I mean, she does, but they're through whoever owns the building that she's living in. She's the first mayor of Oakland to live in a rental property. And I thought to myself, that's a symbol of somebody who's very temporary. And now as the figurehead of Oakland, to me, that means that Oakland is temporary. And when I see this chart by Josh Green, or with Josh Green, he has the Sun conjunction with Juno. And then we have Venus on the other side of it, right? So Juno is the birth of something new. And it's in Aquarius, hardwired into his chart, that he wants to be associated with bringing something new into the world, something more theoretically Aquarian, right? Something like a 15-minute city or a 15-minute island. But I wouldn't trust this guy, because here he's got Neptune in Sagittarius. So he's a Gen X dude, right? But he also has the Sun square Neptune. And when you get into Neptune squares, they're not easy. They can serve a person if you understand how they can work, but they can also debilitate a person. So Josh Green, I think, is debilitated here. It's an 8-degree square. The square with Venus, I think, is a little tighter, actually. And so this is not somebody who I don't think you can trust him. I don't think his agreements are trustworthy, right? Yes, they're fixed, so they're going to serve him. But because of the square with Neptune, he can go back on things. So I don't believe he's trustworthy. And I do believe he is. And with the Venus-Jupiter trine, he has kind of he has a reputation in Hawaii, like he was kind of like a quasi-country doctor, kind of, right? Because he's an MD. He comes from, he grew up in the Pennsylvania area, I think just outside of Philly, went to private school, all that shit, right? So then he goes to, what he is? He's like that doctor in Northern Exposure, except this is Western Exposure. That's who he is. He's like, what's his name? Is that his name? Ethan in Northern Exposure. That's who he is. He's Western Exposure guy. So he had a bit of a reputation of being a doctor and helping people, but then he got into government. He's very governmental, right? And he's also, when I say governmental, meaning he aspired towards it. He worked his way up the ranks. That's Mercury in Capricorn. He literally just kept going up the ladder. He was the lieutenant governor and then became governor, right? He just, he did that Capricorn thing. But he does have a bit of an iron hand. He's got Mars in Aries. Now, he's not going to be, it is confrontational per se, but people that have Mars in Aries generally hang in there, unless, of course, you're Bernie Sanders, in which case your Virgo sun played the role of being subservient. I don't know if Josh Green is subservient. I don't think that to be the case. He's got Eris conjunct Mars in his chart. So I think he is willing to act on and take advantage of discordia. That's my sense with Mars conjunct Eris. Like somebody who can take something like a catastrophe, like Lahaina, and then act on it for better or worse. And he has Chiron trine Neptune in the chart. And maybe that endeared him to people as a healer, perhaps. And maybe his kind of Piscean feel-good story of taking care of people as a doctor, maybe that endeared him. But I wouldn't trust this guy at all. Not with the Venus square. I don't think his contracts are good. They're not good contracts. They're terrible contracts. And he's an opportunist. With the Venus-Jupiter trine, he's definitely an opportunist. Now, perhaps if he's really balanced, he'll be able to I don't know, find win-win for everybody. But I don't know. I don't think that that's really the case. At least not here. At least not with what's currently unfolding in Lahaina. He has that Moon Saturn conjunction too, and that is very fixed. He has a lot of really fixed energy in his chart. Sun, Venus, Juno, Jupiter, and Scorpio. This guy doesn't really move off of his position very much. He's got some mutability, but that's not. I mean, look at all the fixed planets here. You know, his mutability is with Neptune. We're not going to count the ascendant because we don't know if he's a Gemini rising. But he's got that. But again, even here where he's mutable and can have some flexibility, I don't think it works to the best of his advantage. In fact, I think he could be somebody that's actually, can be compromised with that Neptune square. What else? Ceres and Pisces, true node in Pisces, a little bit more water there, and some mutability there. Pluto, Virgo, some mutability. I wouldn't say he's dumb. I would not say this man is dumb. First of all, Mercury in Capricorn is very underrated as a Mercury. Very underrated. People who have Mercury in Capricorn are sharp as a tack. And the trine with Pluto, I think, could be very good at understanding the nature of power. So that's actually, I think, for him, just in general, that's an asset in his chart in general. What he does with it, that's a whole other story. But yeah, it's mutable. But here, the mutability is being worked out through cardinality. So he's an initiator. And I think that he is willing, if he needs to either be uncomfortable or put people in uncomfortable situations. Mercury squaring Saturn, Mercury squaring the moon, Mercury in Capricorn. He's got Pluto on his Mercury. That's interesting. So how will that get sorted out? We saw how it worked for Mike Pence at the debate where transiting Sun was conjunct as Pluto. It didn't work out so well for Mike Pence. I wonder if Pluto retrograding onto his Mercury will divulge some secrets. It's headed in that direction. It goes direct in November. But Pluto's retrograding, and I'm wondering what we're going to find out about Josh Green and his role and these things that have happened to Lahaina. That's going to be interesting. That could be something that could expose him. The other piece here is the transiting Mars opposing his natal Mars and getting into a real clash with people. I would not be surprised if at some point troops might be sent into Lahaina and Maui. I would not be surprised if that happens. I think the next few weeks are going to be my theory is that they'll pay people off. They'll pay people off in and around Lahaina, and that money will trickle down to other people so they don't cause problems. But not everybody can be bought off. So I think that this Mars opposition for him is quite real. And he's got Uranus and Libra, so that Mars is only, about 2 weeks away from conjuncting this and being in a position to start to oppose. So I think Josh Green might have a bit of a fight on his hands. And he might be seeing some suits coming his way. So keep your eye on Josh Green and keep your eye on this oppositional Mars with his Mars in Aries. He's got some issues on his hands. Interesting. And I think exposure, right? Pluto exposes what goes on inside of his head and some of these decisions that he's made. All right. Here's your chart of Josh Green. And we have been going now for 3 hours and almost 25 minutes, I believe. So why don't we get on out of here? And I want to thank all 248 of you that are still here now. And I hope you have enjoyed your time together in chat and some of the things that I've talked about this evening. We've covered a lot of topics and a lot of ground. And it's what we do here on Sunday Night Astro Live. If you're interested in booking a reading with me, all that information is here on the show notes. And we are having an event here on the eclipse, and I promise we got a big announcement to everybody who signed up. It's coming. The schedule is all put together, and let me just bring this up here. We're having a get together right on the eclipse, right here in Texas, and that starts on October 13th. Friday the 13th. Right there. It's the Harvest Moon Festival. And it's going to be 3 days of getting together at the Inn of the Hills in Texas. Ask anybody in chat who's attended the event and ask them what it's like. I'm sure you will get very positive reviews because we have a great time. And I really enjoy putting this together for everybody in our community. You could go to the Inn of the Hills right here and find out if they have any rooms still available. Rooms in the Inn of the Hills is right here. What does it look like? Right there. And the phone number to call, just tell them you're with Harvest Moon. And if you want to book a room, you certainly can. And I'm raising I should have raised the rate. The early bird rate is still there, so I have to do that tonight. I have to go in to Stripe and raise the rate. But here's what you get. You get dinner on Friday night. You get dinner on Saturday night. You get a brunch on Sunday. You get a brunch on Sunday night. You get snacks throughout the day. You're going to be immersed in a room of really great information. So our featured guest is Shauna Home. And Shauna when you meet Shauna, she'll blow you away. And she's in Aries, and the moon is in Aries. So Shauna is going to unveil the secrets of manifestation because of her personal life journey and path and what she's been able to accomplish. It's a great story. She's an author, she's a healer, and she's a force in nature. So she's going to be here with us. Dr. Narco Longo from Old World, Florida, has decided that he wants to be a part of it and part of the experience, and part of it he shall be. And what role he'll play, we'll sort that out. I'll be giving a presentation on the eclipse as well, and some of which you've heard here. And that's just for starters. We're going to have Darlena, who is our human design expert. She'll be doing human design with the eclipse. Leela LMM will be doing a presentation on tremor release therapy. It's going to be great. We're going to have fun. Mark S will be there doing caricatures. We're going to have yacht night on Saturday night with some DJ spinning as well. It's going to be awesome. So I hope you can join us. RobertPhoenix.com is where you can sign up. Go to the Inn of the Hills, see if they have any rooms left. They may not. Harvest Moon is the event, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. And then tomorrow night, Serious Sports with my guy, Al Dog, and that is happening at 8 p.m. And we have just been so over the target with our shows. Let me show you the page here on YouTube, and it's starting to show up because we're getting traction. So please, if you haven't signed up or subscribed, I would love for you to be able to do that and check out our offerings, because we get into astrology and sports. And so during the first two shows, what did we talk about? We talked about Reggie Bush, and we looked at his chart. Reggie's a Pisces, and Reggie was kind of the sacrificial lamb for name, image, and likeness. And then guess what? Reggie Bush is now suing the NC2A for defamation. So we talked about Reggie, and guess what? Reggie's in the news. We talked about Trey Lance, and we did a big breakdown of his chart. And guess what? Trey Lance got traded yesterday. he got traded to the Dallas Cowboys. So we talked about Trey Lance, and it's in a trade. We talked about college football and gambling, and I said college football is going to have a big gambling problem. And guess what? There's a guy who plays for Iowa State, busted for betting against his own team. He bet the Iowa Hawkeyes to lose, or the Cyclones to lose. And he has about 90 other betting infractions. College football, you got a gambling problem. We talked about it. It's happening now. So these are really relevant topics that we're talking about: sports, astrology, how they bounce back and ping back and echo back and forth between one another. So hang out with us tomorrow night, 8 p.m. It's a good time. Al's a great guy. In 2 weeks, we'll have my buddy Mark Matheny from Rabbit Hole Astrology, who is a freaking encyclopedia, thousands of charts, sport with athletes, teams, managers, you name it. That'll be our kickoff special. Or that's in 2 weeks, but that next week, it'll be next week. So we have 2 shows. We have this show, we have next show next week. That'll be on Serious Sports. So come hang out with us. It's a good time. And we talk sports, astrology, and a bunch of other stuff. All right. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate all of you. Mods, you're the best. I'm really appreciative and grateful that you're here just doing what you do. Keep in order on Sunday nights. Dr. J, appreciate and love you. That's it. Chatar, you're the best. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. And now I feed Peachy. Take care. Bye for now.